Good evening. It is Monday, August 11th, 2025, and this is the Ad Hoc Committee on the Sepulveda Transit Corridor DEIR of the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. Um, First order of business is to call to order. Second order of business is the flag salute. Dr.
I
Longcourt, you
have
have
it.
you can, or yes, Bob, go ahead. You are here.
Yeah,
Bob has the real thing, not a digital display.
I fly this on Memorial Day or
Nice.
Veterans Day and all the others.
Wonderful. All
Let me
right.
see how far back I can get. Okay,
All right.
that's a
Here we
legitimate
go.
picture.
All right. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the
to the
flag
flag of the
Right.
United States
of
of
America
America,
The republic for which it stands,
and
one nation,
one
under
under
God,
nation
God,
and God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty
And
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 justice
justice
justice for all.
for all. Thank you. I know it's always a struggle to try to do that over this platform, but we did it successfully. Um, Third thing we need to do is the roll call. Miss Sandler, she's here. I saw her. Miss Pearson,
here.
Mr. Lawrence,
Here.
Miss Templeton,
Here.
Mr. Brand. Okay, I see him raising his hand. I'm here. Mr. Kemp,
Here.
Leslie, Miss Weisberg,
Yes, thank you, Jamie.
Miss Miner,
Here.
and Mr. Schlesinger.
Yes,
And Dr. Longcore, our ex officio officers here. First order of business is approval of the August 11th, 2025 agenda. May I have a motion?
so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Who seconded that?
That was Nikki.
Okay, seconded by Nikki. Is there any objection to unanimous approval? Seeing no objection, we have approved the minutes, or excuse me, the agenda. The second order of business is approval of the August 4th, 2025 minutes that were circulated as attachment A. I trust you've had an opportunity to look at the minutes from our last meeting. They're not in super detail, more higher level, but is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Can you put that up really quick, very quickly, the minutes?
Sure. Let me
Just
see
so
if I can
there was
find
that
it.
one item.
Yes, sure. I know Mr. Brand reached out to me separately and asked for some revisions, and I spoke to Ms. Palmer today about making those revisions. I've not independently confirmed that those revisions were made, but let me see if I can find them.
Hello, everyone. I sent out an email in response saying that since I do have the language, and since the minutes were already sent out and on the, sent to the committee and on the website, that I felt we should just make an amendment to approve the changes that Jonathan can relate, or you can relate, or I can relate.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathy. So the requested revisions were circulated to Ms. Palmer after the minutes had already been prepared. So, Mr. Brand, can you please propose an amendment to the minutes to reflect the
Oh my
changes?
gosh. Let
No,
me, yeah.
It's okay. You can say it briefly. I have the actual language that you sent.
Yeah, let me just find that language really quick. I want to be correct on it. Hold on. Jamie. Here we go. Wait a minute. Jamie Hall. Here we go. Okay. The edits are let's see here. Will you please delete Lower Bel Air Community from number 1 to read fierce opposition from the Bel Air Association and keep Bel Air beautiful? The reason being is the BAA's boundaries include all of Lower Bel Air and large portions of Upper Bel Air as well. And also for consideration, well, I think that's it, but the rest was also for consideration regarding the public comment section. Please include Maureen Levinson's comments about the realistic ridership capacity of the monorail versus subway. And then I went into some detail about that, but that wasn't necessarily for the minutes. That was just something to consider.
Okay, so we have two suggested amendments to the minutes by Mr. Brand. So let's go ahead and have some deliberation on that. I see Ms. Templeton has raised her hand.
I have, Jonathan, could you point me again to where you want the change?
Yeah. Let's see. No, let me go back to that email. Number 1, will you please delete Lower Bel Air community from number 1 to read fierce opposition from the Bel Air Association and keep Bel Air beautiful.
Paragraph 1 is the date and where the agenda was
The
unanimous.
item number 1, like there was about
He was
20
looking
different.
at the Google Doc that we were using in real time, not necessarily the minutes. But there's Ms. Palmer prepared the minutes, and there's somewhere, which I do not know exactly where, it says fierce opposition ... He would like to replace the words Lower Bel Air community to Bel Air Association and keep Bel Air beautiful.
It's in there.
Wait,
So just take out the parentheses and take out the part that says Lower Bel Air Community Stakeholders.
yes, to make it clear that it's about the opposition is from 2 organizations, not necessarily, so just 2 organizations.
Okay, I got no problem with that. And number 2 was where?
He wanted to Miss Palmer, I don't know.
It's
I don't have
under,
the minutes in front of
I
me.
know,
I'm sorry.
it's the very bottom of the section of Jamie's list that I inserted into the minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Do you see that? Did I insert that list in there that Jamie provided?
Yeah,
the very-
yeah, and I apologize, but I could not find this other than on the website. I couldn't find the email with it.
Oh,
But if it's under notes by Co-Chair Hall following the presentation,
yeah, and
what number is it?
it's the comment from Maureen Levinson at the very bottom. She had a comment, and then it would be adding to that she should speak, or that we should consider the comment that she provided about the differences between
Okay, let me just rephrase. It's supplementing the minutes as it relates to Miss Levinson's comment to state that she also made a comment about the realistic ridership capacities of the monorail versus the subway.
Okay.
All right, does anyone else have any questions about the proposed amendments to the minute? Okay, so let's go ahead and vote on the minutes on the proposed amendments to the minutes. All in favor of the amendments to the minutes, please say aye or raise your digital hand.
Aye.
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 If you're opposed, please state so. Any abstentions? Seeing none. Okay, so the amendments are approved. Now let's vote on the minutes as amended. All in favor of the minutes as amended, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we have the minutes approved now. Moving on to item number 3, general public comment. The Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council welcomes comment from the public on any topic within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on the adopted agenda. General public comment is generally limited to 1 minute per speaker unless waived by the presiding officer. If you're here tonight to actually speak about the proposed Sepulveda Transit Corridor project, that would be or anything other than that, now would be your opportunity to speak. Please raise your hand and we will unmute you. I see one person who has raised their hand. And remember, this is about items not on the agenda. Lionel Maris.
Yes, Lionel Morris speaking as an individual budget advocate with Neighborhood Council Budget Advocates. But speaking for myself, for general public comment, the City Charter Commission has already started. There's only very few board members, only very few who are aware of what's going on. And I think it's important that all communities, especially underserved, marginalized communities across the city of LA, be aware of what's going on, because they have been meeting for the sixth time this past weekend. They're going to meet again in 2 meetings next week, on Monday at 4 p.m. at City Hall, and Friday at 4 p.m. This past weekend, Rick Cole, former Deputy Chief Controller, did a presentation. Fair Rep LA from Carolina Goodman, Ross, and Rob Kwan did a presentation for representing Fair Rep on city council size, independent redistricting, ethics reform, neighborhood council reform, and city council reform, and our LA as well did a presentation, and they're viewable online at reformlacharter.lacity.gov. The presentations are there, and it's very important that neighborhood councils, especially underserved, marginalized, be aware of what's going on, because now is the time to make LA City better, make LA City work for everyone, not just for the wealthy or for the affluent, for the common folk, for the working class folk. So I urge you to work together, collaborate together with all other neighborhood councils in the Valley. Thank you for your time. Democracy needs to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maris. We really appreciate that. And just a point of information, our neighborhood council has created an ad hoc committee on the charter reform issue, and we're having a special meeting on Wednesday to adopt a policy platform on issues. So
Thursday.
Oh, excuse me, Thursday. So thank you so much, Lionel, so much for your advocacy, and I suspect you're speaking to other people besides us. So thank you. Then Mr. San.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chair Hall. Thank you very much. I just wanted to offer a quick comment, and I know you just approved your minutes, but I'm not a member, so I wasn't able to raise my hand and speak. I just wanted to note in your minutes, you do have a reference to the comments that I made, and I just wanted to offer just a tiny clarification, if I may, under the section where you have comments from members of the public. You said robust conversation with Steve San. One, I don't know if you want to note that I'm speaking as chair of the Westwood Community Council, just not as just a random person, but to clarify, I did outline our Westwood experiences with the purple, and I wanted to maybe make a clarification that it was the purple D-line subway construction. I'm not sure everyone would understand when it says purple construction, just to make clear that it's the purple D-line subway construction. And just to be absolutely clear and accurate, I think it might be slightly more accurate or clear to say that I reported that we received no reports from any of our Westwood neighbors that they felt anything during the construction of the tunnels. I can't say that nobody felt anything because I can't speak for every single person, but I did report accurately that we, our council, and to my knowledge, none of the homeowner associations, neighborhood council, no Westwood organization received reports of any Westwood neighbor reporting that they felt anything during the construction. I just think that might be slightly clearer and slightly more accurate. Thank you.
I'm keeping my own, and I'll just keep this, keeping our own notes separate from the minutes, so I can go ahead and just revise that. You said you were the chair of the what now?
Chair of the Westwood Community Council.
Okay, so I just kind of revised this slightly to include
Right.
that. Just the purpose of my notes. The purpose of my,
is it possible to correct it in the minutes? My concern would be that if somebody,
I think that's I mean, there could be a motion for reconsideration, but I really don't think that it's essential for our purposes. This is just for posterity. So, but if someone on the board wants to make a motion for reconsideration, they're entitled to do that. Thank you so much, Mr. Sam. We appreciate your comments.
Chair Hall, I appreciate that. Thank you. My only comment is your website's an excellent resource, and it is kind of the official record. I'm just concerned that if somebody who was not at the meeting saw your minutes and read that, it doesn't give really a fully accurate account of what I said. I know your committee knows that. I just want to make sure that a stranger who reads it wouldn't misunderstand what I said.
If only we're so lucky that strangers visit our website.
I would make that motion. You know me, I'm a stickler for accuracy, so
Okay, so we have a motion for reconsideration. Well, how don't we do this real quick? Let's close our public comment. And then before we move on to the next agenda item, there could be a motion for reconsideration. Is there anyone else in the general public comment that in the general public that would like to make a comment? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the general public comment. Now would be
Travis has his hand raised.
Okay, Mr. Longcore, Dr. Longcore.
Can
He
I
probably knows
suggest?
more about parliamentary procedure than I do.
Yeah. So in the interest of our guests who have taken an hour out of their evening to join us from UCLA, can we take this until the end of the meeting to revisit the minute questions so that we can maximize the time that we
Sure.
have with them?
Absolutely, that makes
Thank you.
perfect sense, and I appreciate that. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the main show. This is a series of meetings that we're conducting to better inform ourselves about this significant project within our neighborhood council boundaries. We have heard from various persons regarding their viewpoints, and we've tried to obtain the viewpoints of various people. We've spoken obviously to an individual from the Valley, very knowledgeable about this, with the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. We've spoken with someone from the Getty. We spoke to someone affiliated with the Bel Air Association and Keep Bel Air Beautiful last week. And this week we're speaking with representatives from the UCLA. So I would like to welcome our speakers. We've invited two speakers tonight, Dr. Jonathan Stewart and David Karwoski. Are they both elevated as panelists?
Yep, they're with us. Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you so much. Who would like to go first?
I'm happy to.
Great.
Should I just start by introducing myself?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jonathan Stewart. I am a civil engineer. My specialty is in geotechnical engineering, which is essentially civil engineering as applied to earth structures or foundations, tunnels, things like that. And I'm also an expert in earthquake engineering, and most of my research is in earthquake engineering. So I am in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at UCLA for nearly 29 years now, and I do research and teaching and a good deal of public service related to those areas. So I am not in any way involved in the project, so I'm basically an observer. So in other words, I was not a consultant to the company that did the EIR or anything like that. What I have done is I've read the portions of the EIR that are related to geohazards and things like that. And I've, so basically that's section 3.6, and it kind of talks about the regulatory environment as it relates to these things. So different building codes, for example. I've looked at the assessments of the hazards in that document, which are preliminary, right? This is obviously a preliminary assessment. They're not drilling borings and things like that as part of this. They've assessed different geological hazards, including fault rupture on the Santa Monica Fault, ground shaking, liquefaction, things like that. And then they conclude with statements about the impact, whether it is the operational impact or construction impact. So that's basically what I did in advance of this meeting, was read those things. And I, as far as I know, my role in this meeting is to let you know what I think about that, right? Yeah. So,
and that's perfect. I just want to say there were some statements at our last meeting saying that, gosh, we wish we knew some experts.
Yeah. Well, I do know something about, I mean, I live in Santa Monica, I've been here for a long time. I have a decent working knowledge of the geology of this area. So, so I guess maybe a good place to start is, do you have specific questions for me related to either geological or earthquake hazards?
Well,
do you just want my opinion of the EIR?
Well, can I ask a bizarre question that might have nothing to do with this, but since you are an expert, a sinkhole opened up last week in Stone Canyon. Can I just ask why, if you do have some expertise, why that might happen in the middle of Stone Canyon?
So I'm not familiar with that one, but generally we get sinkholes for one of two reasons. One is that you have geologic media underneath the site that is dissolvable. So like limestone rock in Florida would be a really good example. So it kind of just washes out basically over a very long period of time, and then you have a cavity that collapses. The other reason you could get a sinkhole is you have perhaps a tunnel or, you know, a vault or something like that that degrades and collapses. So I don't know which of those or something else happened there, but you know, we don't really have dissolvable rock like they have in Florida here in the Santa Monica Mountains. So I don't think it would be a limestone problem.
I have a question for you. There were some statements in previous meetings about when the red line was built and there were some failures. I don't know if you're aware of that. And
I am.
people were expressing concerns that similar things might happen here. You know, do you know what happened in the past? And is there any, you know, possibility that that could happen again?
The tunneling for the red line in particular.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I was in high school when that happened. I have followed it and I'm aware of what the problems were. I think there were a couple of different problems at that time. So there were issues of natural gas and, you know, not really mitigating those problems at the time that they started tunneling. There were also issues of not adequately pressurizing the tunnel face and basically supporting the ground as you're tunneling, which then allows ground deformation above the tunnel and around the tunnel to occur. And that did in fact occur. And of course, it raised all kinds of alarm bells and basically halted that project. Those things were investigated in the years after that. Technologies were developed to address it. And that's essentially what allowed the line that goes down Wilshire to resume.
So technology's advanced.
Oh yeah, yeah, quite a bit.
Other issues that were raised in the last meeting were just kind of generalized concerns about LA being, you know, earthquake prone and concerns about tunneling in this environment. I remember some other person saying, well, you know, they have a huge subway system in Japan and there's lots of earthquakes there too. So can you tell us novices a little bit about what additional procedures or protocols might be in place in tunneling in environments where earthquakes are known to be hazards?
Yeah, that's a natural question. And just to give you a little bit of a frame of reference on how I'll answer this. So earthquake engineering, which as I mentioned is my core research area, has a very strong observational component. That's certainly not the only thing, but we do reconnaissance after major earthquakes. We go and we see the impact on the built environment, mainly as civil engineers. And among those things we would be looking at are tunnels, right? And so where I've seen tunnels have problems and earthquakes are basically one of two situations. So the first one is when a tunnel crosses a fault and the fault ruptures and it breaks up the lining of the tunnel. So there have been cases where that's happened, for example, in Turkey. The other example, or sorry, the other situation where this would happen is when you have ground around the tunnel or the station that is liquefiable. And what's going on there is, liquefaction is where soft, sandy soil that's saturated generates a lot of water pressure, and the soil essentially turns from soil like we're used to it, which has a certain amount of strength, to something like a liquid, which has very, very low strength. And when you make the soil have very low strength, the impact of that on a tunnel or a station is increased pressure against the sides of the tunnel. And if you're not designing the tunnel or the station for that increased pressure, then you can have a failure of the walls. So there have been incidents like that in some locations in Japan. That was from the Kobe earthquake in 1995. There were also issues there where you simply had old structural elements that failed, just like you would have a column fail in a building. There were some columns that failed in some of these stations in Japan as well. So that's the kind of thing that I've seen as far as how things can fail. One of the interesting things, though, is that by and large, even in places where all hell's breaking loose like everywhere else up at the surface, oftentimes tunnels and underground structures in general do pretty well. Part of the reason that this happens is that when we design underground structures, we have to design for a significant amount of gravity-related earth pressure. And the additional earth pressure that an earthquake produces, which may surprise you a little bit, it's definitely real. It's there, but it's often not that large relative to the gravity-induced stresses. And so if you design, say, the wall of a tunnel for a gravity-induced stress, and you use a margin of safety, say a factor of 2, so you're designing for twice what the gravity is going to give you, and then the earthquake increases the stress, say, by 50%, well, you're still within your margin of safety. And so it's often the case that our underground structures do pretty well in the absence of, say, a fault rupture or a liquefaction situation. Now, with fault rupture or liquefaction, if you know it's there in advance, right? So you do the investigation, you find that the problem is there. Well, that's what engineers are for, right? We identify hazards and then we design to mitigate them. So even if those hazards are present, and there certainly is a fault rupture issue for this line where it crosses the Santa Monica Fault, you know, you can implement mitigation measures to deal with it.
Where is the Santa Monica Fault?
It's pretty close, like in terms of this part of Los Angeles that we're talking about, it's pretty close to Santa Monica Boulevard.
As I understand it, there's also a fault at Nemes Road in Lower Bel Air.
Maybe a smaller one, yeah.
Right, and Lower Bel Air also is a liquefaction zone, just for the committee to know.
And are you saying, though, Dr. Stewart, that there are ways, even that those facts alone doesn't mean that, but the engineers have found ways to still engineer in those environments?
Yeah, we have. And in the case of liquefaction, I think it's really a non-issue because unless you're talking about the segment up in the San Fernando Valley or the segment down below the Santa Monica Fault or something like that. But in the mountainous part of the segment, while there might be liquefaction at the surface, that's not where the tunnel is, right? The liquefaction has to happen around the tunnel. Otherwise, it just doesn't matter.
But
So the main geological hazard that could threaten it is fault rupture.
Fault rupture. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think hopefully it's fairly explanatory. Like if you can see my hands, I hope.
Yeah.
So if you have the fault going like this, it's imposing that level of displacement across the tunnel that's going through it. And so we have, you know, issues with fault rupture on critical tunnels in many places in Southern California. One of the really critical ones is the Elizabeth Tunnel that brings water over from Owens Valley, which goes through the San Andreas Fault. So a lot of thought has been given to how do you deal with these things. I think it's very unlikely that if the Santa Monica Fault ruptures, that service would immediately continue on this line, right? There would be damage. It would need to be closed for a bit. They would do repairs, realign the track, and then reopen it. So I would anticipate designing for a no damage situation is not practical, but you know, designing for something that is fairly resilient in the sense that repairs aren't going to take many, many years, but maybe a few months or a few weeks is practical for this situation. So that, you know, the design team, if this alternative is selected, that you're tunneling through the fault, the design team will deal with this.
And Talk a little bit, if you can, about monorail versus subway, and the different risks that might be present with that alternative versus a subway.
Well, they're obviously very different structures, right? So you're talking about tunneling versus a bridge. Um, I don't recall the details of what's happening at the fault in particular with those two options. So with the monorail, is it monorail all the way past the fault? Or does it go underground at some point?
Dr. Longcore, do you recall
It's
that?
different for option one goes all the way down to Wilshire as a monorail and eventually would stay monorail all the way to the airport in phase two. Option three is above ground and then goes under Bel Air to a station at UCLA where it is underground and then goes back and connects up to basically the 405 alignment further south.
As a tunnel?
Tunnels and then I think it goes back up and is above ground.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. I'm sorry I didn't memorize that entirely, but
Yeah,
I'm pretty close.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I think the tunnel part starts roughly around the Getty Center Drive exit and south of there to UCLA.
Yeah. So, you know, we talked about the tunnel aspects of it. If you have a bridge crossing the fault, you use seismic joints, right? So these seismic joints would accommodate the displacement, but the track would be deformed. So again, you would have to do some repairs after the earthquake.
And the bridges like this, you know, survive during earthquakes. I mean, obviously they do. We know that some do and some don't. I mean, but do you have anything to say about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a tremendous amount of work has happened on bridges over the course of my professional life. You know, I got my undergraduate degree in 1990, just after the Loma Prieta earthquake. And you may know that a bunch of bridges came down up in the Bay Area during that earthquake. And when I was a PhD student up at UC Berkeley, we had the Northridge earthquake here, and I did a lot of work on that. And there were bridge collapses there as well. These bridge collapses were because of inadequate reinforcement, particularly the lateral reinforcement around the bars that go up and down through the columns. So they were not able to maintain their ability to carry vertical load once they were deformed by the earthquake. And so research at UC San Diego, UC Berkeley, UCLA, I think, but mainly San Diego and Berkeley, you know, kind of helped engineers at Caltrans understand how to detail these bridge columns better to resist these things. And they also came up with ways of how to retrofit older bridge columns to deal with this. Now, obviously, this would not be a retrofit situation. This would be a new construction situation. And they have a pretty good handle on how to deal with that now. So it's really all about the detailing that goes into the reinforced concrete columns. And like I said, seismic joints that provide a little bit of give in the overall structure. Besides, you need those joints anyway, just for normal concrete shrinkage after construction.
All right, I have one more question, and then I'm going to let the other committee members speak. Do you have a after doing your reading today, and we very much appreciate you doing that before coming here, a general opinion about either the sufficiency, the robustness, or the adequacy of what you read? That's a big question, I know.
Yeah, no, I expected that. So I agree with the conclusion that the operational and construction impacts, depending on which geo number we're talking about, right? There's geo 1 to geo 8. They're all described as either being less than significant with mitigation, or no impact. There is an exception for alternative 3 and geo 8, but that's not really, it's not really a geohazard. I don't think that's what you have me here for. So, those conclusions of less than significant with mitigation or no impact, I think are reasonable given my understanding of what they're planning to build and the hazards in this area. And I should say that an important part of why I agree with that conclusion is a statement in section 3.6.2.2. Obviously, they haven't given a detailed design of this, but that is forthcoming, right? And section 3.6.2.2 has this sentence: adherence to design and construction standards as required by state and local regulations would ensure maximum practical protection for users of the buildings and the associated infrastructure. So what that's basically saying is, whatever alternative is ultimately selected, it's going to be designed and constructed according to these standards. And I am very familiar with these standards. I've actually helped to write some of them. And these standards are proven methods that have been tested in earthquakes here in California and elsewhere. And, you know, they're effective given the state of knowledge that we have. So I think that based on what's in the report itself, and equally importantly, based on the track record of Metro with projects in recent years, including the Wilshire Line, you know, I think that the hazards that exist that are real can be mitigated, and this can be designed and constructed safely.
Thank you. So I will now open it up to committee questions, and then we'll move on to our next speaker. Let's start with Mr. Brand.
Hi, thank you so much for attending. I do have a couple questions. One is there a fault zone that actually goes through the 405? That was one question. And then the other one is I wanted to ask more about when you engineer for underground in or through a fault zone, what is the premium to do that sort of construction, the engineering and the construction, the subsequent construction? Are you talking about, is it 20% more, double, triple the cost to be sure that it's safe? Just kind of curious about that.
So yes, to answer your first question, there definitely is a fault that passes through the 405 and in the outline of this project. That's the Santa Monica Fault. And that is an active fault, right? So the state of California, through the California Geological Survey, maps active faults in different parts of the state. And if those faults have been active in Holocene time, which is the last 11,000 years, it maps them and it requires detailed investigations if you want to build on them. So like if you wanted to build an apartment complex and you're in the zone for that fault, you would have to do a study to figure out exactly where it is relative to your structure and mitigate the hazard. So, and in general, you can't build over the fault, right? If you're just talking about an apartment building or something, most likely you would not be able to build on the fault. So the second question was the additional cost of doing that. So I guess I would just start by restating something I said a moment ago. This act of the state legislature, which is from 1972, it's called the Alquist-Priello Act. It was motivated by the 1971 San Fernando earthquake, by the way. But that act, calls in the state geologist to make the maps that I described, and it basically says that once you know where the fault is, you can't build within 50 feet of it. Now that's for buildings, basically. Certain structures are exempt, like houses and stuff, but if you get some special provision and you are allowed to build on it, say like Caltrans building Highway 405 or this structure, that segment is going to be a lot more expensive than the segments north and south of there. There's no doubt about it. It's hard for me to put a percentage on it, but the level of detailing, the level of investigation for that particular segment is much more expensive, I'm sure.
So the same would be considered if you wanted to tunnel in a fault area in regard to engineering and the actual construction.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that act I described doesn't apply to tunnels, but yeah, I mean, the point remains the same, right? This is a significant fault. I mean, just for perspective, it's not the San Andreas fault. It's not certainly the most active fault in California, but it's an active fault and we need to deal with it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm just going to go through the people from the bottom up. Mr. Lawrence.
Yes. Hello. Thanks for being here. I was wondering if you could add any more detail from your reading about potential impacts to the Stone Canyon Reservoir Dam and any potential hazards or the effectiveness of the proposed mitigations in the EIR. Thank you.
Sure. So I think that whether it's the dam or houses above a tunnel, it's kind of the same considerations in terms of the design of the tunnel itself. So, I think the general question is, as we observe ground deformations around tunnels, what are the main factors that drive it? And what can be done to minimize? So, one of the factors is simply how close the tunnel is to the surface. So all other factors being equal, if the tunnel is pretty close to the surface, you're more likely to have an impact. My understanding is these tunnels are pretty deep, so that would be in favor of this project. Another one is the diameter of the tunnel, and in particular, the diameter relative to how far down it is, so that sort of ties in with the depth issue, but again, all other factors being equal, you'll tend to get a little more if the diameter is going up. But I think probably the most important here is the pressurization of the face if there are weak geologic materials. If you're tunneling through hard, competent rock, you don't really need to do this, but if you're in soil, then you need to pressurize the face so that the material you're cutting into is not deforming into the tunnel. And then, of course, you need to line the tunnel once you've got it excavated. So the pressurization and the lining will be critical issues that the design team will address that are intended to keep the miners doing the tunneling safe and to minimize ground deformations above it. And I think there's one other point that's important to make, and certainly this would apply to that reservoir. So they would design this thing in such a way that they're anticipating minimal, if any, movement. But almost certainly the design team would also put instrumentation in. So you can imagine the tunnel, maybe it starts in the north and it works its way to the south. And so you would have all this instrumentation along the alignment. If there was movement, you would see it above wherever the construction is at a particular time. And you might even see it a little bit ahead. So if you're getting movement like that, then you're doing something wrong, right? So that's the whole reason for the instrumentation is you're finding out if what you're doing is working. And if there's a problem, you fix it. And so I would anticipate that that instrumentation would be there and there would be action plans in case something unexpected happens.
Great, thank you. Next person, Dr. Longcore.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Stewart, for joining us. So I think there's like three things that come together into, I think, what is a related question here. One is it's been represented to us in terms of the tunneling options, that one technology is old and it's 2 tunnels and of smaller diameter, and that another is newer and it's one big, like 40 feet across tunnel. And then there's a third that's associated with the monorail. So there's different tunneling technologies. The second is that I think one area of concern is where the tunnel would be getting at least a couple of options, where the tunnel would be getting quite shallow under Stone Canyon Road, Stone Canyon, as it comes up toward the UCLA station, something like 40 to 50 feet deep. And if you're thinking then it's a 40-foot diameter tunnel that's 40 feet deep, it starts pinging on what you just said about the depth versus the size of the tunnel. And Stone Canyon itself, of course, is a stream. And I'm curious about dewatering and how dewatering and water pressure, or the level of dewatering that would have to happen, especially as we get shallow, because I cannot find anywhere in the EIR where they talk about the need to dewater or the quantity of dewatering that would happen, or as we get shallow, even up across the UCLA campus, of course, you're up into what is essentially an ancient, it's an ancient drainage, an ancient alluvial plain, which we warned them about years ago when they were going to build Lot 4 and into the ground in the IM field. And we said, you're going to have to pump. And they said, no, we won't. And then they had to pump. And so I'm curious how these things come together in your mind in terms of safety of the 3 different tunneling technologies. And of course, if you want to offer relative to monorail, and the degree to which it's reasonable to be concerned and asking questions about the relationship with water and the shallowness of the tunnel relative to its bore as you are in the sort of upper UCLA, lower Bel Air area. I hope those come together coherently as a question.
Mhm. Yeah, so I guess maybe one issue to address is can you tunnel through saturated ground? Right? I think that's part of your question, right?
And
So,
what's the ecological impact of then dewatering as that is necessary? Because I can't find a discussion of that.
so dewatering is one way to deal with water around a tunnel. You essentially make the water table deeper, and then you're tunneling through partially saturated ground. But it's not the only way, right? So you can, whether it's water intrusion or maybe you have, really unstable material ahead of the tunneling device, the tunnel boring machine, you can actually improve the ground ahead of the tunneling operation in order to try to minimize that impact, like, for example, seepage in. So, like one example is when they built the BART tunnels through San Francisco, that's very shallow groundwater, very soft ground, right? And they were able to do that in such a way that didn't produce too much deformations of the structures above. And this was quite a long time ago, I would add. So it's certainly possible, and you couldn't dewater there, right? You can't dewater and lower the groundwater relative to the entire San Francisco Bay very easily. So it is possible to do it. It's more expensive, and it would need to be dealt with by the design team. But groundwater in and of itself is not a reason to not build a tunnel. It's just a constraint you have to overcome. The shallowness, so basically as it comes closer and closer to the surface, the potential for movement goes up, but again, these movements can be mitigated in the ways I was talking about. Pressurization of the face, tunnel lining, and things like that. We have tunnel going down Wilshire Boulevard. I haven't heard of any significant movements related to that. So that just kind of shows you these things can be dealt with.
Okay, great. Moving on, let's see here. I'm going to go in the order that people have raised their hands. Ms. Templeton.
Hi, thank you for being here. It's very helpful and informative. And thanks to everybody who asked questions before me, because a lot of mine have been answered. I do have 3. Do you have any, and this may be on your area of expertise, but with respect to the actual monorail cars or subway cars in the event of an earthquake, what is the probability that the cars themselves might come off the track, or in the case of the monorail, fall off the platform?
Pretty unlikely. I think what would happen in the event of an earthquake is there would be a trigger that would bring them to a halt, right? They would keep them from moving until the earthquake shaking stops. Then there would be kind of an assessment of, is the track ahead stable, working properly. But as far as the cars toppling over, I'm quite certain that they have mechanisms to avoid that.
Yeah, and then number 2, would you have any idea about the construction vibration, the vibration or noise during construction of a tunnel?
So that's beyond my expertise. I have just sort of layman's understanding, but no, I'm not. It's probably better to have others who are subject matter experts on that topic.
And then the last one is, do they know for sure all the faults that are in the Santa Monica Mountains in this area? And if not, would they be engineering this to withstand the forces of a fault rupture that they didn't know exist in areas where there's not a known fault? So would it be throughout the whole part that's underground?
So the word known is a very strong word, right? Like it means you're 100% confident that you know, and geology is usually not very amenable to knowns of anything. The thing about major active faults, though, is they tend to reveal themselves at the surface, particularly strike slip faults. So But that being said, we need to have a little bit of humility. We didn't know about the Northridge fault before the Northridge earthquake. So there you go, right? So how does that impact a project like this, any underground excavation? You're basically tracking what you're seeing as you're tunneling. So if somehow there was a fault that was coming up close enough to the surface that the tunnel would intersect it, they would notice, right? And so in that kind of a situation, they would probably stop, stabilize the face, and go back to their design team and say, what do we do now? Right? Now, I should also say that there would be exploration along the line, whatever line is selected, to try to find these things in advance. It's much more cost efficient to find them before and deal with it in design than to find something during construction and have to deal with it then. But whether it's in design or in construction, if they found a fault, they would address it just like they would the Santa Monica Fault Crossing.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Miss Minor.
Yeah, so thank you very much for being here. It's very, very interesting. My concern is what they call spring water, which is in the Santa Monica Mountains. Now, does that have anything to do with, or another name for groundwater? But I don't know if it could be determined exactly where it comes from, but I can tell you that it's there. And it comes to the surface at various times, and even into the highest points of the Santa Monica Mountains. So that's my first question, my concern about underground rainwater. My second question is, could you kindly just define the liquefaction for us?
Yeah, sure. So starting with the spring water, yeah, this is kind of a common thing in mountainous areas, right? You get precipitation at different times of the year that charges the aquifers, and the water migrates in the subsurface, and it can pop up to the surface here and there. So that's nothing to be alarmed by. That's kind of a normal geological process. It would be an alarming thing if it had never happened before and it suddenly happened. That probably means there's a pipe break nearby. You know, that kind of falls under the general category of issues that we talked about a few questioners ago with how do you design tunnels in high groundwater areas? You know, there are ways of dealing with it. And then liquefaction. So the way to think of that is if you have granular material like sand, and it's fairly geologically young, so that kind of means in the Holocene, which is 11,000 years. So it's sand, it's young, and it's saturated. That's the other key component. So if you have those three conditions, and then you subject that to a strong earthquake, what essentially happens, I'll use my knuckles here. My knuckles are like grains of sand. They're disturbed by the earthquake, and they want to push into the void space where the water is. That essentially pressurizes the water, which reduces the contact stresses and weakens the soil. So liquefaction is most definitely a significant issue in many parts of Los Angeles. It's not really an issue in mountainous areas generally.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, we have two more commenters, and then we're going to move on to our next speaker. Ms. Weisberg. You're muted.
I see that. Thank you. I really want to thank you for being with us tonight. It was such a pleasure to talk to somebody who's so experienced and expert. Just to build on Dr. Longcore's question, I'd like to understand in the lower part of Bel Air is a liquefaction zone. And one of the options, as Dr. Longcore expressed, brings the subway via a tunnel up to 40 to 50 feet below that liquefaction zone as it approaches UCLA. Can you just speak to that liquefaction element? Because that the liquefaction area is not limited to the area around where the tunnel would be. It's that entire area. And in fact, all the residents in the area are required to carry flood insurance because of it. So I would just like to understand the context of how you would essentially decommission the water around the tunnel, but obviously water would be pouring in from the rest of the liquefaction zone area around it. I'm not quite sure that I understand the mechanics of this.
So, I guess there's two ways to think about liquefaction. Like, would the project impact the liquefaction potential of the region and property owners in that zone,
Mm-hmm.
right? So would the tunnel make it worse, basically? And another question is, can the tunnel be safely built through such a zone? So would the liquefaction threaten the integrity of the tunnel, basically? So, as far as the first question goes, there's really no reason to think the tunnel would change the liquefaction risk. If in the process of constructing the tunnel, if it actually goes through the liquefiable strata, you have to realize the liquefiable strata may go down, say, 20 feet, right? And if the tunnel's 40 feet down, then it's not going through it. But if it does go through it, they would probably do some ground improvement in the vicinity of the tunnel. That would be kind of a typical measure that a designer would take to deal with that. That would actually make it better for the community if they did that. You would at least have that localized zone of improved ground. So I don't think there's any concern about the tunnel making things worse for liquefaction that we should be concerned about here. As far as the ability to construct a tunnel safely through shallow groundwater, potentially liquefiable soils, I think the biggest issue, frankly, is that you could have water intrusion during construction. So the liner itself needs to be impervious as close as we can make it. And then you have to have some kind of a collection system for whatever bits of water do come through, which then leaves the face. I keep talking about the face, right? Because that's the part you just excavated in the front end. And obviously there's no liner there yet. So by pressurizing that face, you are holding it back. And, they would need to deal with water intrusion through that face because of the shallow groundwater. So whether it's grouting or any number of other mitigation strategies, they would have to deal with it. I don't know how they would deal with it exactly. I could guess. I've essentially given you a few guesses here today. But that would be something the design team would have to select the best option.
Great. Thank you very much.
And our final speaker from the committee is Mr. Kemp.
Yes, hi, Dr. Stewart, thank you very much. I think your presentation is very enlightening for us, so greatly appreciate your time on that. I just have a couple questions kind of going back to soil borings. I believe you mentioned, and it's true, they have not done yet any soil borings, have they, for any of the options? Is that true in the
Well,
DEIR?
I didn't encounter anything like that in this report. So usually those things happen later on during the design phase.
Just from your experience, would they wait until they pick an option before they would do any type of soil boring to test the soil?
I would think so, unless they felt that geologic hazards were so significant and variable that it would impact which option they picked. But I kind of doubt that's the driver here. I think it's probably more about construction costs, and utilization and non-geological factors that are going to drive the route.
Okay. And then last, along those lines of the boring, is it typical when they do the soil boring, will they do the boring all the way down to the depth or the depth of where the tunnel is at, or is it more of a sample of the soil approximately above the tunnel? Just curious how deep
it goes down to the tunnel alignment because they want to know what they're going to be tunneling through.
Okay.
One of the biggest reasons for doing it is you want to know as best you can the nature of the material you're going through because that impacts the kind of equipment you're going to use.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, Dr. Stewart.
Pamela has her hand.
We have to make it really quick because our other speaker has a hard stop. Go ahead, Ms. Pearson.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart, relative to the composition of our hills with the loosely bound sandstone and layers of shale. Could you compare and contrast the susceptibility in these cycles of drought and then heavy rains, where we see on the surface fairly catastrophic impacts, with the stability of a tunnel versus the footings for the monorail?
Yeah, so, these wet, dry cycles that you're speaking of, I think as probably most of you know, are more likely with climate change. And the main impact of that in a mountainous area like this would be landslides, right? So shallow landslides, which are, they can be damaging. These landslides would be above the alignment of the tunnel. So I don't think the tunnel is going to impact them, or it's unlikely to be impacted by them.
Thank you so much.
And the footings for the monorail.
Yeah, so if you have a surface structure like that, and if you think that a landslide could impact that area, then you would mitigate the landslide, right? So that's how you deal with that.
Again, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. We're now going to really appreciate it. So let's move on to our next speaker, David Karwoski. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jamie. Good evening, everyone. I'm David Karwoski, Director of Mobility Planning and Traffic Systems at UCLA. I've been there since 2006 and worked on the Purple Line, which became the D Line, the stations at UCLA, and I've been a transportation planner for about 30 years, which, my description of that is planning is kind of the nexus between engineering and politics. So it's kind of an interesting mix. But I've been following the draft DEIR and may be able to answer some questions.
Well, I mean, the first one I want to start off with is, and I don't know if you're prepared to speak on this, but obviously, we've been trying to obtain the perspectives of different kind of institutional players and or large residential players or people impacted. Can you speak as on, UCLA's priorities or
Sure.
preferences with regard to having a stop at the school?
So I thank you. I think the most important thing to understand is that we're a public university. And as a public university, our interest is in serving our constituency, the citizens of the state of California, and particularly those in Los Angeles. And part of the mix of going or attending UCLA or working at UCLA or coming in for medical care is getting to and from UCLA. So access is a critical component, particularly in somewhere like Los Angeles. So our perspective is, what can we do to make it easier, more convenient, and particularly for students, less costly to get to and from the campus? Having the opportunity to opine and be a stakeholder in such an important regional project that may well bring a station to the middle of UCLA campus is something that we consider to be a positive development and something that we would like to see come to fruition. Our main focus is getting a one-seat ride to the middle of UCLA and an elegant connection to the D-Line station down on Wilshire Boulevard. We have remained technology agnostic. We're not, really splitting hairs between, is this alternative 3 and the monorail that comes to Gateway Plaza right in the middle of campus, or one of the heavy rail alternatives, whether it be 4 or 5 on a Sepulveda alignment, or alternative 6 on the original project that Metro was conducted a feasibility study of before they got into the idea of public-private partnerships and looking at other design alternatives. So it's really the crux of it is that the fact that we're a public university and all the things that you would quickly associate with being that and having improved access.
Another kind of follow-up question. We've had some people question the ridership forecast. And heavy criticism on that topic by some of our speakers. Um, do you have an opinion on that? And has the UCLA independently assessed whether or not what the ridership might be for their stakeholder group?
Well, I think, the first thing and the most notable thing when you look at the project opportunity is the ridership. And the ridership numbers for some of the alternatives is uh, very large, even enormous. The potentially achieving 120,000 trips per day. When you look at the entire metro rail system, it would essentially be double the busiest metro rail line that exists today. But one can quibble about details of methodology and what they call travel demand modeling, which ends up the tool that's used to generate such estimates. But really, it's fairly intuitive if you consider that you're connecting the San Fernando Valley to the west side. If one just simply looks at the existing 405 freeway and the 400,000 daily vehicle trips per day that pass across that Sepulveda Pass, that gives you a hint. And when you look at what I would call the base data, is looking at what is a population. You look at the population of, let's say, the San Fernando Valley. Greater San Fernando Valley is a population of approximately 1.8 million people. The city of Phoenix, Arizona, has almost the exact same population. I think Phoenix is the 5th or 6th largest city in the United States. So if the San Fernando Valley was its own municipality, it would be absolutely one of the 10 largest cities in the country. So it's no surprise that there would be extraordinary ridership or very high ridership, because there's really no other connection from the valley to the west side except the 405 pass. Putting a rail line there and seeing the large numbers, to me, is really indicative of this project is late. It's late in coming. It probably should have happened a decade or several decades ago. There's a significant travel demand from people who want to get to the San Fernando Valley to the west side and vice versa.
Another question, we've heard people talk about increasing housing opportunities for students and employees, because obviously this is not a shocker. Housing prices are cheaper. Apartments cost less in the valley than they do, in Westwood. Can you speak? I mean, that's just a generic statement, but has UCLA do you have any unique perspective or statements you'd like to make on that topic?
Sure. So, we humans tend to make our travel decisions based on three things: travel time, cost, and convenience. And the first one is, how long will this trip take me? And when you begin to look at today going over the Sepulveda Pass, you have both a long trip, time-wise, and an unreliable trip. You really don't know whether it's going to be 35 minutes or 65 minutes. It can be either. So one thinks about the reliability of that travel time and how much shorter the travel time would be coming from, and let's say the terminus station at the north end at the Metrolink Van Nuys Boulevard station. If you considered where can you get from the valley into the west side to UCLA on transit within 60 minutes, it's virtually nowhere. I think it's the park and ride lot in Encino was the only one getting on a LADOT commuter express bus. If you paint that same picture and you now have a rail station at the Metrolink station in Van Nuys Boulevard, and you look at the travel time shed, let's call it, in that area, deep in the San Fernando Valley, the number of people and the physical footprint of the people that can access UCLA from that valley portion, the middle of the valley, is huge. You've essentially you've shrunk the city, because in Los Angeles, we don't tend to think of how many miles it is to get to somewhere. You think of the travel time. How long will this take? And that travel time on the train, imagine a 16-minute ride to the middle of UCLA campus from the Van Nuys Metrolink station. Think about that compared to what you would have to do today if you were sitting up there in your car and you had to make that drive. The difference is substantial, and the quality of life benefit that this would enable for people that live in the San Fernando Valley is hard to overestimate, because now you have access. You can simply get on the train, and in a very short period of time, a reliable travel time, you're going to be at the West Side. You can get the medical appointments, recreation activities, cultural attractions, work, class, those types of things. So from an equity perspective, an opportunity perspective, the shorter travel times are a significant boon to the citizenry of the Valley and really the whole area.
Another kind of concern that we've heard from people is just feasibility. Just people scratching their heads about, we're planning all of this, but where the heck are we getting all the money? And I don't know, thoughts on that?
Sure. So, when you look at it from a technical perspective and you look at it as a competitive process for federal funding, the numbers that we're seeing, the travel demand from the Valley to Los Angeles, are hard to beat. Unless you're talking New York City, I don't think anyone else is going to come close when you're looking at near term or projects that are under planning across the United States. Maybe the Hudson River Tunnel, certainly, the new one between New Jersey and New York City. But barring those, barring those, I don't think anything is going to beat these numbers. And therefore, that puts Metro in Los Angeles in a very competitive position to gain federal funding. I recently was combing through some old files looking at the D line. And in 2008, we wrote a letter to Metro about their long range plan and suggested that while we understood that the Purple Line, as it was then called, the Purple Line extension out to the West Side had no funding, was certainly a worthy project, and encouraged them to pursue funding for it. Same thing in 2010, when UCLA, we wrote a letter to Metro. They did not have federal funding secured, not to the extent that they would need to build the line. So this isn't the type of exercise or project where you wait until you have all the money in pocket and then you go build it. This is something where you do the planning, you have funding, and you know that in partnership with the federal government and sometimes the state government, funding is allocated to advantageous projects that have great benefit cost ratios. It's a good investment for the nation, and this is what happened with the Purple Line, and I'm quite sure this is what will happen with this line, given the high ridership estimates.
Before I move on to these are just questions I thought of off the top of my head, but before I move on to other committee members' questions, is there anything else that you would like to add? Or just to let you know, we are going to be just like our neighborhood council. We're going to be writing a letter to be submitted during the public comment period, and this committee is going to be drafting something and presenting it to the full board. So is there anything else that you think that we should know in terms of UCLA's perspective in all of this?
Well, I would just suggest that you should be cognizant of the opportunity for certain quid pro quo from Metro as you go forward, where one of the thoughts is, what does your community want? What could benefit your community that Metro would be in position to assist with? I heard of an opportunity earlier where Professor Stewart had mentioned there was a question about liquefaction, and as the tunnel rises up, it could be fairly close to the surface. And look at this as a way to, it's a bit of a negotiation with Metro. And it's a question of what are the community's concerns. I would caution against being very binary or black and white and dealing in absolutes. I think the savvy or clever play is to be a little bit more nuanced and find things that they can enable for you.
Very good advice. Appreciate that. So let's move on to some committee questions. Mr. Lawrence.
Yes. Thanks for being here. Hold on, let me find my question here. So I agree. I think it's important for us in asking our guests questions and our own deliberation to think about what's important and what we need out of this situation for our communities. And in that spirit, I'd like to ask you, to speculate or provide any information that you might have on the potential impacts on canyon traffic. For example, Beverly Glen and Roscomere have had increased traffic, as you know, the demand for transportation between the west side and the valley has increased. So yeah, if you'd like to speak on that, I'd love that. Thank you.
Sure. So, I'm privy to there's certain community members in Bel Air that have particular fears about tunneling under homes and such, and concern that this is going to somehow reduce quality of life or other elements. And I think that listening to Professor Stewart, I think that it's pretty clear that this is less of a concern than perhaps before the meeting. And one of the things, though, that is something that should be a very real concern, a very overt concern for your committee, is that alternative one is going to impact the 405 and the 405 traffic. And in fact, when they build it, freeway lanes are usually 14 feet in width. The freeway lanes will be trimmed to 11 feet in width, and the shoulders will be removed. So you'll now have a road that won't have shoulders and will have narrow lanes. Narrower lanes often result in a higher crash rate. So one of the things you can intuit is that over the approximate 6.5-year period that the construction would occur, there may likely be more incidents on the freeway. And given this, and that there are potential alternative routes like Roscomere and some other canyon roads, I would anticipate that with that alternative, you're going to have diversion, and people will do what they call find some equilibrium in the network, and they will shift their trips off the narrowed freeway onto canyon roads. So I would expect that your traffic volumes would go up, whereas one could suggest that the tunnel is, at least in Bel Air, going to be relatively innocuous. It's particularly everywhere, and I suspect even at the tails, meaning the southern end as it gets to Sunset and the northern end as it gets to Ventura, but certainly anybody who lives anywhere reasonably in between is going to be a significant higher elevation than the tunnel. You'll never even know it. And as we heard from Mr. Steve Sand earlier, talking about the D-line tunnel between Century City and Westwood, people didn't even realize that it had already occurred at various points where they inquired about it, and they're like, well, we already did that part, and nobody felt anything. So I would think that your concern should be a bit focused on the traffic, the divergent traffic, and perhaps less so on the tunneling, but it's of course your prerogative.
Great. Let's move on to our next committee member with a question, Ms. Templeton. Ms. Templeton, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I was thanking you for being here, and I have 4 questions, and I'll try and make them brief. Has UCLA done any studies or surveys regarding whether or not its students and faculty and visitors would use the either the monorail or the subway, and approximately how many trips per day?
No. And the reason why we have not done any of these surveys is because it's very clear that they will use it. And I'll say this, really a 3-part answer. One is the fact that each of us is somewhat implicitly a transportation planner. When you get up in the morning, you have to decide how you're going to get to wherever you're going that day. And as I said earlier, you're really going to choose that based on travel time, cost, and convenience. And all 3 things paint a rosy picture for taking the rail line rather than driving or some other mode. So it's just something that I know from experience will occur. The second thing is that the student body is extremely, I'll use that term, extremely enthused about the rail line coming to campus. They have been very active as advocates. The organization STC for All held a press conference in June, and there were speeches by the Graduate Student Association president. An impassioned speech was very good. There was a speech by the undergraduate student president of that council, and the students, the undergraduates, Administrative Vice Chancellor Michael Beck has written 2 letters to Metro early on in the process, both I think in 2022. And the undergraduate student government more or less demanded to meet with the Vice Chancellor, essentially to convey their displeasure at he not taking a strong stance and saying heavy rail now directly to campus. And they were very agitated about it. So you've got both the evidence of their own actions from the students, just the reality of how people operate. And then the third thing is that within the past 2 years, certainly the first version happened earlier, but in the last 2 years, both student bodies, the Graduate Student Association and the undergrads, but via referendum, voted student fees for transit passes. So you go back 10 years ago, we were doling out or selling about 2,000 to 3,000 transit passes to students per year or per quarter. Advanced to today, I think last fall, we sold almost 19,000 transit passes to undergrad students alone and about 7,000 grad students. So we have more than 25,000 students who actively pick up a transit pass and use their transit pass. So that is voting by their actions. So I would say I'm quite sure they'll use it.
Thank you. That was informative. And then you had mentioned travel time as a factor in whether or not people use public transportation or how they choose their method of transportation. One of the options is about 65% longer travel time than the others. Do you anticipate that would impact usage?
Yeah, it surely will. It's you may alternative one is would land the Westwood station on the west side of the 405 at the VA, and various times a day, if you are knowledgeable about what Westwood traffic is like, particularly if you're on the west side of the 405 in the afternoon trying to get to the east side of the 405, I would dare say that the trip from that station to the middle of campus might take you longer than getting from the Metrolink Van Nuys Boulevard station to Westwood. It's definitely, and you see that in the ridership estimates. It's pretty clear.
It was actually alternative 3 that was 65% longer. And then for the monorail. And so you had mentioned lane narrowing during construction with respect to the monorail option 1. I would assume that would be also true for number 3.
Yeah, number 3, I believe, has a projected ridership of about 82,000 per day. If you look at that compared to the heavy rail alternatives, I think alternative 6 is about 107,000 per day. And if you look at alternatives 4 and 5, they're over 120,000 per day. So you're talking 67%, of the ridership of the heavy rail ones, and that degradation in ridership volume is almost entirely because of the travel time.
Right, but they would have to also narrow the roads for number 3 as well as for number 1, because you would only number 1.
Just up until where it turns into the hillside in Bel Air. So essentially, it would be from somewhere around the Getty Center 2 points north along the 405. But within the EIR, there's actually a section called site plans where they have detailed CAD drawings. You could get in there and dive in and take a close look at what they're suggesting. And there are portions of the monorail that actually are in the middle of the freeway. One could intuit, construction impacts from that. So it seems, like something like Brentwood Hills, I would expect they would be negative on alternative 1. Those that, live through Carmageddon and adding that HOB lane some years ago, I would expect that they would not be supportive of let's endure 6.5 years of this again.
And then one last question. A previous speaker on a different day was saying that this type of transportation, whether it's the monorail or the subway, was already obsolete. And we're going to be having flying taxis and robo taxis, and that will make this obsolete. So we shouldn't build it. What are your thoughts on that?
How many people fit in a eVTOL air taxi? 4, 6? So, I mean, you know, let's just think about it. Think about subway, monorail compared to a basically you're telling me a Jetson vehicle. It's going to carry 120,000 people per day. I don't know what the math is, but that's quite a lot of Jetson vehicles flying over the hill. I just don't see it. I think, you know, the answer in Los Angeles is yes and yes. We don't need one or the other. I think you're going to have both.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next speaker. I want to make one observation before we move on to our next speaker, is that someone else, I can't remember, spoke and said that Metro had said that there was not going to be any impacts to the traffic on the 405 as a result of this. And I'm hearing the exact opposite from our speaker. And that makes sense to me. I couldn't believe that there would be no impacts to traffic on the 405 as a result of the monorail construction. But let's move on to Ms. Weisberg.
First of all, thanks for joining us tonight. A very quick question. Does UCLA support a station at Getty Center?
Well, as part of Alternative 3, which would come to UCLA. So we're not against it. I don't know that we're overtly opining about stations elsewhere. I think, you know, our interest is in what serves UCLA and our constituency the best.
Are you concerned about what serves Los Angeles overall?
Sure. Yeah, we are, but I don't think you know, taking stance on individual stations is advantageous to us.
All right. Mr. Brand.
Yes, Metro has never met its expectations on ridership. Why do you think it would meet it this time? We're talking about such high demand. In addition, the money might not have been there for the purple line or D line, whatever you call it, and then they had Measure M. And what more measures and where's more money going to come from? Because tunneling will cost $30 to $40 billion, take 20, 25 years. Has UCLA considered looking at any of the cost or time it would take for some of the other alternatives?
So
factoring it in?
The XO rail line, I think it's now the E line.
No,
were you around?
the purple line. I meant the purple line. Sorry.
Okay, but the Expo rail line you talked about, you said the statement that Metro has never achieved its forecasted ridership. And I'm quibbling with that because the Expo rail line, now the E line, blew past its like 5 or 10 year ridership within 6 months. So the demand is certainly there. And, you know, again, I go back to the base numbers. Just look at the populations, just look at the demand coming over the hill today. I really don't expect ridership volume to be an issue. The demand exists. Now, your comments about cost, you know, I'm sure we all know that the cost estimates are nowhere near 35 or 40 billion. On the other hand, there are certainly historically cost escalations and construction. That's the nature of construction, particularly these days in tariff time, and you know, who knows where we'll be in the late 2030s. But things can be expensive, but I've not seen anything that high. So I'm not going to comment further on that.
Ms. Sandler.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, from the point of view of UCLA, UCLA is the center of the universe. But from the point of view of all these hundreds of thousands of people in the valley and in town, UCLA is a part of Los Angeles. Why are we taking so many people from Los Angeles who don't want to go to UCLA to UCLA?
That's an interesting question. I've not had anyone ask me something like that. So what I would say is that when you are planning a rail line, when you're planning an investment, such a large investment, one of the things you're looking at is Where are the activity centers? Where is the where's life going on? Where are there humans aggregated who arrive at a place and want to be there? And those are the places that you want to serve. This is generally your connecting activity centers, and you are following along and meeting travel demand. And that's essentially what this is an investment in a transit line to meet travel demand. And the travel demand to and from UCLA and Westwood is huge. So it's not as if we're trying to steer people who want to go elsewhere and divert them or detour them to UCLA. They're already coming to UCLA and Westwood. And what
That's, you're assuming that. But what the way it was sold to the public initially was that this was a one project, not three projects, that there would be an ability for the people who have been shortchanged, so to speak, in the Northern Valley to go to LAX, to have the opportunity to have some freedom of transportation and to really serve their needs. UCLA does not serve those people of hundreds of thousands their needs. I'm even curious how you could say that there's one seat transit from Getty to UCLA, and here we're talking about not hundreds of people, but thousands of people. How are we going to have one seat? It's a practical question that I'm asking. I'm a Bruin. I love UCLA. I think it's a great school. I haven't been back there for games. I haven't been back there for plays. I have, but not on a regular basis, I'm talking about. It's a great place to go. It offers great things. But how much have you considered the rest of all these thousands of people who don't want to go to UCLA?
So thank you. That's something that we've certainly talked about, and I'll go back to, I have a couple thoughts. One is I'll go back to my original statement about our public mission. And our public mission includes getting people and enabling opportunity by having the best access as possible to campus. You're certainly right in that not everyone wants to go to UCLA, and it is just one stop on the line. One of the things that the Sepulveda Transit Corridor rail line will do is it will tie together the Orange Line, the G line, the D line, the E line. So right away you're completing a network. It's almost like the spider web of Metro Rail in Los Angeles is missing this whole left side, this whole left vertical connection. So UCLA is just a stop along that rail line. Now, many people, as I was saying earlier, want to go there, but not everyone. But the way that that's going to connect those other rail lines is just fantastic. So even if UCLA wasn't there, didn't have the numbers, that project is still making those connections. But when you add in UCLA, just by the existing demand today, if you ask, well, how could you be certain that all these people want to go? They're coming there today. So it's just serving that. The ridership numbers go up. The demand is there, but it isn't just about UCLA. And in fact, really, when you look at this, and when we have talked about this on campus, one of the things we really focus on is this isn't about UCLA and Westwood. We're a public institution with a public mission, and a lot of this is really going to benefit the people that live in the San Fernando Valley. And it's about them having access to opportunities. And if you look at a map of disadvantaged communities in the Los Angeles area, San Fernando Valley is chock full of disadvantaged communities. So it's providing an equity benefit that is missing currently. But you're right, it's not just about UCLA. In that line, it is unfortunately phased, where the phase 2 is where it gets down to the LAX area. And it would be nice if that could all be done in one fell swoop, but it was split by Metro, and that's just where it's at today. So hopefully it'll get there one day, but these are huge projects that are going to take some time.
All right,
So given that, how long a time are we looking at?
Well, we're talking about the late 2030s for the first phase. And I believe the second phase is quite a bit later, something like 2050 or so. I don't exactly remember which year, but it's phase 2 is fairly far off.
All right, let's go because we have limited time here, let's move to our next committee member, Mr. Schlesinger.
Couple of questions. First of all, is there only going to be one rail line that's going to go from the valley to the airport? Is it going to be just a single rail? And if it's a single rail, how often is it going to make a round trip? An hour, hour and a half, 2 hours?
You know what, Robert? I don't know. There, right now you've got the K line going in there to the new transit center they built. But I'm not familiar. I haven't studied phase 2 and looked at what's planned for that.
So there's only going to be one vehicle that's going to go from the valley to the airport, or you're going to have 2 tracks underneath the tunnel or some other place, or you're going to have a second track so that trains can pass each other? Are they going to pass, or is it going to be one train to and from?
No, you're always going to have 2. I mean, you're not building one set of tracks. The train runs down the tracks and then it goes back on the same tracks. I mean, you will have you'll have a dual bore tunnel with the trains running in each direction, or you have a larger single bore tunnel where you have 2 sets of tracks in there. So it would always be like that.
Okay. How far under Mulholland Drive is that tunnel going to be?
Several hundred feet.
Okay. And how are people, if there is an incident or an accident or something of any, whatever it is, how are they going to get out?
It depends which system is being used, whether it's alternative 6, the dual bore tunnels, or alternative 4 or 5 with the large single bore tunnel, and then the monorail tunnel for alternative 3. And I'm sorry, I don't have that level of knowledge of those details of exactly how people would egress the cars during an emergency incident.
Okay. I appreciate your answer, but that's very important, and evidently it's not being answered yet. Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to move on. I think that we have Ms. Pearson on the phone would like to ask a question.
Yes. Since we are all encouraged to think that we would have a transit system from the far end of the valley to the airport, how much has it been discussed? How much cost is being diverted to a spur exclusively for UCLA and another for Getty, when it appears they would be able to share one at the intersection of the Purple Line and utilize a transfer system, the Purple Line, or a surface bus to go up to the Getty, since the utilization for each of those areas is a lower population density, and it's generally only during the daytime, whereas the ridership for people commuting to their jobs or in the other parts of West LA, as far as meeting up with the E line, the Gold Line, and going to the airport 24/7, is incredibly significant. That's where the numbers come from. It's not from UCLA and the Getty. So why should we expend so much resource instead of extending this project to accomplish the true goal?
Well, first, I would remind you that UCLA has a large hospital on campus that includes a level 1 trauma center.
I'm a doctor. You don't have to. I understand that.
And it's a very active place, and they're working 24/7. So to say that, why are we going to UCLA? Well, if you look at the ridership deltas, because that's where people want to go. You put in.
No, I didn't ask why. I asked, has it been discussed the financial resources that are going to be attributed to having a Getty stop and a UCLA stop in such close proximity, whereas they could share a stop aligned with the Purple Line, which would take them directly over to Westwood. And then the Getty Center is very adept at using small shuttle buses, and it's a short distance to meet up with their tram system. It would also be on the surface.
It sounds like you're suggesting alternative one, where people can then take a bus from off the freeway station to UCLA and not have the direct connection. And then the same thing with the Getty Center, where there would just be a station and they would walk the 1,000 feet to the tram, which seems kind of far, but apparently that's what it will be. And then that will continue. So in essence, you do have that cost delta available. And really what it comes down to is that cost is about $15 billion projected. By
How much more distance would the project be able to go towards the airport?
Well, it
the gold line.
Yeah, it's not like because you're not taking it's actually a longer route. In fact, by going along the 405 right of way, if you look at it, it is fairly circuitous the way the Sepulveda Pass goes, because it's following the topography, where if you're going underground, it's a straight shot.
I am familiar with it, yes.
Right. So you look at the tables, you see it's much more direct, actually, if you come to Westwood than following along the 405. But let's say, for sake of argument,
that wasn't my question. It was if they were able to share their limited necessity for a stop, and it was interfacing with the purple line, which goes directly over to Westwood, how much further would we be able to go to another stop closer to LAX, which affects a lot more people day and night than either of those two entities do, which exclusively, no nighttime, essentially.
I don't suspect that Metro is going to elongate phase one if they somehow skip the Getty Center in UCLA. Like, the terminus is going to be the E-line. And even if something was done to edit or alter the pathway coming south from the valley, it's not as if you're dealing with a physical thing like a string or a pole or something, and because it's a shorter path, you go farther. I don't think that will happen. I think that there's tying into the E-line, all the environmental analysis, et cetera, was done up to the E-line. So you've got a complicated process of planning this. What you're suggesting is not likely to occur.
Okay, so it's already 8:15, so thank you, Dr. Pearson. And at this point, we've taken all of our questions, I believe. No, Ms. Miner, we're gonna really quickly, I'm gonna let you ask a question, and then I need to open this up for general public comment. Ms. Miner? Ms. Miner? You're muted. Okay, Ms. Sandler, is that a legacy hand?
Oh, sorry, it is.
Okay. All right, so I don't know what's going on with Ms. Miner. Can you speak now? I see you're unmuted.
I think I can. So,
Okay.
the gentleman mentioned about advantage to the community. Well, there is no advantage to the community that's being sought on and tunneled on and have caissons and eminent domain and construction. That's for the benefit of outsiders, the people outside the community. So I'd like to know what advantage to the community does any of this, hold? And it's something that's not immediate, because it's going to go on in stages. It could go on for 30 years. That, let's say, Sherman Oaks and part of West Los Angeles, and maybe everything in between, has to suffer all this time, and will never be an advantage to the community. And my other question is, why can't this whole thing be done underneath the 405, or a second road built on top of the 405? Why does this have to go through these communities and ruin these communities and be of no advantage to them at all?
Thank you. So the first part of the question, asking about what are the benefits to the community, it is interesting because you are in the middle, and it's not like you're going to saunter down to the Ventura Boulevard station or the UCLA station and hop on the subway and go somewhere. It's just the physical reality of where you are. However, that does not mean you do not benefit. And if you go back to my comments about the narrower lanes on the 405, and Jamie, to your point earlier about Metro, suggesting that there'll be no impact on traffic, they'll keep the lanes they have. So you'll have the same number of lanes. It's just that narrower lanes are not as.
Well, I'm talking about like during the construction, like that there would be minimal impact to the usage of the 405 during the construction. I'm skeptical of that claim.
Yeah. So, but what will happen is that the line will take some traffic off the 405, and particularly if the construction occurs in a way that doesn't add traffic to your canyon roads, all the better. When you look at the number of people per day who will be on the rail line, many of those people would be driving otherwise. They will create greenhouse gas emissions, and perhaps more importantly, here in the LA Basin, they will create traditional air pollutants, NOx, volatile organic compounds. None of this is good, and it's good to have a good bit of this alleviated. You take 120,000 people per day if they pick one of those alternatives, or even if you took 82,000 and you picked alternative 3 and 107 alternative 6, a good percentage of those would be car trips. And they would be car trips in cars that are internal combustion engine vehicles. And, air pollution isn't a good thing. So that is certainly something that floats up out of the Sepulveda Pass and impacts Bel Air. So I believe you'd have better air, you'd have less cut through traffic.
Thank you. So let's go ahead at this point and open it up for general public comment. I see 2 public commenters, Ms. Levinson.
Thank you. I'm a fan of the monorail, and I live in Bel Air. But I wanted to ask, UCLA students need to go to LAX too, is that correct?
Sure.
And so I also want to see, now UCLA, they don't have a stadium, but they have Pauley Pavilion. Is that the largest venue you have at UCLA?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and so is it open to the public? Like if the people get on and get off at the UCLA stop, are they allowed to go on the intramural field, for instance, or use the stadium? Is there any public access for the people wanting to stop at UCLA?
There's certainly public access across the campus, museums and things like this. Pauley Pavilion, your doors are often open. You can walk into the outer ring, the outer area, and walk around a little bit. I had a meeting there last week and was able to do that. And the intramural fields and such, I think not. I think those are reserved for members of the campus community.
I find that annoying as a runner, I just have to say. But go ahead.
I kind of suggest, I know I went to the BYD meeting, and it seemed like with the 405, the reason why the roads are going to get narrower is because of the new express lanes they want to put in. BYD says it'll be minimum impact on the 405, and maybe the committee should speak to them about that to see, because things are prefabbed, and it's just like not a factory, but it's a very easily put together to go down to LAX, which can match with they can interface with the people mover. But I was in New York City. I wanted to know something about public safety. You had the recent encampments, which garnered worldwide attention. And I'd like to hear UCLA's mitigation efforts to address the safety issues regarding UCLA as a destination spot for protesters and demonstrators that caused the university disruption and student safety concerns, and the easy access to the campus via the proposed Metro subway station. On a side note, I go to New York City a lot. I was there a few years ago when there was a curfew, but a mob came down, a rowdy mob, and they used the subway to go to Washington Square and wreak havoc, overwhelming NYPD. But I just wanted to put that out there because this stuff does happen. So what are UCLA's mitigation? What are they going to do in case a mob wants to come and sort of take over the campus via the subway?
Well, it's unfortunately a salient question these days, and certainly something we've thought about. I think that one of the things we'll be asking Metro in our DEIR response letter to them is pushing them to ensure that there is at least as much coordination as there has been on the D-line station down on Wilshire Boulevard in our parking lot 36, generally adjacent to Veteran Avenue. And that area is a little busier, is a little bit more foot traffic, other parts of campus. So we already have some experience with working with Metro, collaborating with them, the city, and our UCPD, and now Office of Campus Safety, and getting that managed and addressed. And one can say that today, unfortunately, mobs can already show up at UCLA. They don't need to get on a train to do so. And as we saw some time ago, we've had experiences that lean in that direction, certainly. So we would not want to see that again. But you prepare as best you can, and you collaborate with the transit agency. I think the one thing, though, that you wouldn't want to do is to say, well, we don't want to have a connection at UCLA, because we're fearful that someday, at some point, this might happen. And eschew the extraordinary benefit that the rail line will bring to the LA region, and particularly those in the San Fernando Valley, because of a scary maybe. I think what you do is you look at the resources you have and the collaborators that you're working with, and you prepare as best you can to mitigate this, to be prepared for it, to plan for it. And that's all you can do.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to our next public speaker. That's Mr. San. Could someone unmute him?
Don't forget.
Yes. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I want to speak now. In the past, I've spoken as the chair of the Westwood Community Council, but I want to speak now as one of the very active volunteers with STC for All, the Sepulveda Transit Coalition, Corridor Coalition for All. And I think many of you may know that's an organization that now has well more than 100 organizations that have joined STC for All, and we stand for two very simple propositions. It's saying to the Metro Board, regardless of which option you choose, regardless of whether you choose the monorail or the heavy rail mode of transportation, we're calling for two essential elements. One, that there must be an on-campus UCLA station, and two, there must be a direct, seamless connection with the Purple D line. That specifically eliminates alternative one, because alternative one is the only one of the 5 alternatives that fails both of those tests. Alternative one skips the UCLA campus, it skips Westwood, and it does not have a direct connection to the Purple Line. As was mentioned, it drops people off on the west side of the 405 freeway at the VA hospital, and then people would have to go to a bus stop, board a bus that's in regular mixed use traffic, not even a dedicated bus lane, tootle on in a bus in rush hour traffic or regular traffic to get to the village and eventually to the campus. So alternative one fails both of those tests. There was a question raised, what benefit does this offer to the Beverly Crest community? I want to point out that given the ridership numbers that are projected, the great reduction in cut-through traffic on streets that are currently impacting Roscommare, cut-through traffic on Beverly Glen, cut-through traffic on Benedict Canyon, cut-through traffic further east at Laurel Canyon. These are very significant benefits, and as was noted, your neighborhoods are getting, in some cases, crushed with increased cut-through traffic because people just can't face the delays, the red lights, the horrendous experience of trying to get through the 405 or the Sepulveda Pass, especially during rush hour. So that's one huge benefit. I also want to address a question people said, why would there be this station? You know, has UCLA commandeered this project by having a station on the campus? And I have to say, the numbers show the exact opposite. The UCLA station will be the second busiest station at about 18,000 people a day. And as was noted, these are people already coming to the campus. Not surprising when you have the largest university enrollment in the state of California, 47,000 students, 40,000 employees, third largest employer in the county, a massive medical center that brings in people coming for life-saving treatments, all the cultural opportunities at the Hammer and the Geffen and the Fowler Museum and the Sculpture Garden, the sporting events at Pauley and at Drake. So if you didn't have this UCLA station, that's 18,000 people that wouldn't be able to get to UCLA on a transit line. And then the connection at the Purple Line, that would become the single busiest station in the entire county because it would have this essential north-south, east-west connectivity. And regarding the Getty, we love the Getty, but you need to look at the numbers. Someone should note that the Getty has very tiny projected ridership. I think it's like 1,300 people a day are projected to use the Getty station compared to, say, 18,000 people a day using a UCLA station, or about, I think it's some 30,000 using the Purple Line station connection at Wilshire and Westwood. So I just want to say that I think there are extremely significant, great significant benefits. And it's really, I think, not correct to say that by bringing a station to UCLA that this isn't serving the community. People are already coming to UCLA, only now they will be able to come on a transit line. And for those of you who are not going to use this line, if you stay on the 405, you can expect far fewer cars, because out of those 123,000 people who are projected to use this line in alternatives 405, for example, a good many of them are people who would otherwise be taking the 405 to get to the west side, and now they're going to be taking transit. Those are huge numbers of cars removed from the 405. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sand. Appreciate it. I'm not seeing any further hands in the attendees list. We're going to go ahead and close the public comment on this item. I want to thank our speaker, Mr. Karwoski, for, yes?
There is, Jamie Meyer has been posting some questions or comments on the Q&A. If you might, she might be wanting to have those.
Yeah, I wanted to make note of that also.
Okay.
We do need to let our guest go.
Yes.
We promised him an hour and it's been almost 2. So
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, well, so we won't be able to get to those questions and answers. So thank you so much, Mr. Karwoski. We really appreciate you coming here with your wealth of knowledge and experience on dealing with large transit projects like this and providing the perspective of UCLA. As I mentioned when I started this meeting, we really are trying to understand different stakeholder perspectives so that we can draft an informed comment letter. Is there any concluding comments that you would like to make?
No concluding comments. I just appreciate the conversation, and you had some interesting questions. Hopefully I provided some info that is useful to you.
You did. We really appreciate it. And thanks for taking some time out of your day to spend with us.
Sure.
All right, moving on to the next item on our agenda. It's committee discussion of planning procedures and priorities of the ad hoc committee. As you may recall, what we've done in the last meetings is use this really as an opportunity to take some notes, summarize what we heard, so that when we are ready to draft our comment letter, we haven't forgotten what we heard. And the best time to do that is right after it's happened, even though it's 8:32 and I don't know about you, but I'm tired. So let's just see if we can get through this in 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to share the screen and I need people to help me because there were a lot of things that were said. So let's see here.
James,
All right.
can you copy the questions that weren't answered and show us that list?
Yeah. We just didn't have time to get through them.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting to know what they are.
Okay, I'll do, here's, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'll just do a screenshot. That way I don't have to worry about cutting and pasting correctly. Well, maybe I won't do that last one. Okay, let's see here.
No censorship, do them all.
I'm not going to do that. We're not going to call anyone anything.
Oh,
Just 1 second here.
What are we doing now?
Miss Minor wants me to cut and paste the comments from the question and answer, and I need a couple of minutes in order to do that. Just
okay.
a second.
I think that would be really good because those questions were asked a long time ago. I think they were important. I'm sad
I was
they didn't get
unaware
answered.
that there was anything in the question and answer. Trying to do that. Okay, I have to go to where the screenshots are. Just give me a second here.
You can copy and paste from the Q&A.
I don't want to do that. I want to do a screenshot. Okay. Dropbox over here. Screenshots. There. There. You received. Those are the comments. So this is a document that you guys can share.
Jamie, this is in a shared doc, right?
It is. I can share
Can you
that.
share it? Can you share it?
I don't want everyone to have the editing capabilities because I'm afraid
Right.
that some people might
But,
delete
but
it.
you can turn off editing capabilities.
Okay.
Right, view only, right.
Who wants it?
I definitely do.
Okay. Tell me if you want it. Just say your name and I'll do it.
Bob
Leslie.
Bob Schlesinger.
Bob.
Where is he? Oh,
Robert. It would say Robert, I think.
and Nikki.
okay, who else? Who else?
Nikki wants it.
Nikki.
Leslie wants it.
Oh, Nikki's not showing up for some reason.
Yes, she is minor. It's orange.
Well, I'm only okay. Who else?
Leslie.
You're
Please.
already on there.
Okay,
Who
thank
else?
you.
Aaron
Lawrence, Aaron.
Don't forget to fix where it says editor.
Yeah, and who else? Raise your hand if you want to be on it. Okay, so I'm hearing none. Adding these three. There you go. You're all viewers. Okay, so let's make the notes. So today's August 11th, 2025 meeting. Who was our first speaker again? His Dr. Stewart, was that his name?
Yep.
Yes.
Jonathan Stewart.
Okay. What were the main takeaways that we heard from Dr. Stewart?
And do we want to say he's a geotechnical engineer? His specialty is geotechnical engineering and earthquake engineering.
Yes.
And civil engineer. He's a civil engineer.
Specialty is, say it again.
Geotechnical engineering and earthquake.
You're breaking up. Specialty is what?
Geotechnical engineering and earthquake.
Geotechnical engineering and earthquake engineering.
Civil.
Civil engineer.
He is a civil engineer.
I've typed it up so I could read it to you.
Well, this is our notes, which are less than yours. So what else were our main takeaways? I mean, I heard from him that he thought that and I know this is just what doesn't mean you have to believe it, but I heard from him that he believes that the EIR was sufficient on the topics that he read. He did say that. That was his conclusion.
He believes that Metro has the capacity to to solve on the engineering side for any eventuality that they encounter.
Yeah,
Essentially,
earthquake and liquefaction and water issues.
To solve earthquake,
liquefaction.
liquefaction, and water issues.
Travis, do you agree with that?
That is what he said.
That's really the essence.
What?
I said that is the essence.
Oh, okay, yeah. Largely, he said on this whole EIR adequacy was because it said that it had to comply with the existing regulations pertaining to public safety. I forget exactly what he said, and that he helped draft some of those regulations.
That's right. And he said that in the boring process, despite regardless of whatever, again, this is just a reiteration, whatever problems they encountered before they were assuming that they built a tunnel, before they built a permeable membrane, that they would accommodate. So it's essentially what you said before.
Yeah, and with respect to any unknowns and with respect to faults or liquefaction, that they would know when they were boring the tunnel.
Just say it one more time. Start all over.
No, what he said was that in boring the tunnels,
boring the tunnels,
before the implementation of the permeable
before the implementation of the permeable
membranes,
there was no permeable
Impermeable.
Yeah.
Impermeable.
Impermeable. Thank you, Pamela.
Yeah.
That they would accommodate or solve for whatever unforeseen problems they encountered, essentially, right? What he was saying was that if the tunnels flooded, essentially, as they were drilling them before they implemented the impermeable membranes, that they would pump out the water and solve for the I would interpret it essentially as the semi-collapse of
the intrusion, the fluid intrusion.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
He also said that new technologies have been developed after the red line had been constructed that would prevent collapses.
Right, that would mitigate,
he
right? Because
emphasized,
they now blow air into the tunnels, correct?
He emphasized that the technology has improved significantly in all aspects.
Has
over the past
improved
25
significantly in all aspects. And what else?
Over the past 25 years.
Over the past 25 years.
Since the build of
Yeah,
the
that would include the red line, the yellow line, and the purple line, and the orange one in the valley.
The tunnel, we are unlikely to see tunnel collapses.
But he also said
occurred when the red line was constructed.
Right. He also said that given that some of the proposed options go through fault lines, that in order to mitigate for the fault lines, if those routes were chosen, they would be much more expensive.
Yeah, you can't miss the Santa Monica fault line because it runs at the foot.
Right.
At the toe
Well, I think what he said was
the
heightened
hillside.
engineering standards would be in place within 50 feet of the fault lines.
Exactly.
What I want to point out to all of you is that in a previous meeting when we talked about the build around the option of the Getty Center station, there, Jamie, you talked about changes in legislation that would allow for the building of
Apartment complexes.
right around the station. And what he was essentially saying was that because that would fall on a fault line, an apartment complex could not be built there.
No, you got to understand the Alquos, and he mentioned the Alquios Priolo Act.
Yes.
Only says that you can't build on a fault line within 50 feet of the fault line. So it's really just don't think that's going to solve things for you.
Yeah.
You literally can't build right on top, but you can be right next to it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you can feel the shaking 3 miles away.
But again, we're summarizing what we heard from
Oh.
Dr. Stewart. Heightened engineering standards would be required
One thing
within
that Bob
50
mentioned.
feet of the fault lines.
Okay. One thing that Bob mentions always with plum meetings, the haul routes for the materials that would be excavated from a tunnel boring. I mean, we're talking years. And where does it go?
Well, we've never even brought up that issue.
Yeah, that's a biggie.
I know, but no one brought it up. And so what we're doing right now is just summarizing what Dr. Stewart told us.
Yeah, I should ask him.
Anything else? High picture. I mean, we're going to have Kathy's minutes. And what we can also do, and actually what I'm going to do, since we have recordings, Ellen taught me this, you can actually ask Gemini or Chat GPT to listen to your recordings and summarize, and it does a really good job. So I might actually do that because there's only so much we can do because we're trying to listen and work at the same time.
Well, he did reassure us that on the monorail that the system was built in a way that sensors would recognize an earthquake motion and stop the cars, and then people would have to go inspect the lines to verify that things were intact before they moved again.
He also said that
Not just the monorail, it was for both.
monorail and subway systems.
And it wasn't going to fall off.
Yeah. Unlikely to.
Chains. Cars would not fall off the monorail. He also said it was unlikely
would be more easily
we were unlikely to see bridge collapses
because of the improvements in design, structural design.
Yeah, and he also said there was less movement deeper underground.
He also talked about how he had the experiences of other countries that are earthquake prone and that the tunnels have not experienced major problems.
Yeah. In recent history.
Right.
Or due to the advances in design engineering.
Hockey is talked.
He's a very good, very informative speaker.
Yeah, I think it's not improvements, well, it's improvements in technology and design.
Anything else? Big picture topics that we heard from Dr. Stewart. He talked about
The seismographic studies that were carried out after other incidents between San Diego and Berkeley for the analysis. So that increases the margin of safety.
Okay.
And he also said that if anything, mitigation factors for areas in Lower Bel Air prone to liquefaction would improve.
Oh, yeah, he did say that. He said that there would likely be improvements to the ground surface. I think that's what he said. In certain areas, which would help nearby structures.
Yeah, I think it was only if they encountered liquefaction and had to mitigate it. So
There would be improvements to the ground surface in certain areas if liquefaction was what's the word here? Encountered,
and mitigated.
which would
Oh, just FYI for everybody, they have already done borings. They did one over here on Nakata.
Yeah, they did one on Linda Flora too, and up at Mulholland, but I don't know how deep.
Yeah, they were here. They were here a couple of weeks boring on the side of Stone Canyon.
Sorry to be the grammar police, but it's if liquefaction were encountered.
I go fast here. They're like
Have you mentioned the weather and the change as we have dry spells and wet spells?
I don't think he really talked about that.
Well, he
He
did
said
say
that
that,
only mattered for surficial processes, not underground.
But
no,
it
not underground. He
doesn't,
said
though, you know.
there would be slippage and
Well, it seeps down. It permeates down through these soils because they're so porous, and it causes the water plane across the shale plains to make things want to slide, and that can still affect the deeper geological composition over time. Like the springs, they get supercharged and they can cause things, and you won't even be aware of it on the surface, but it's, you know, changes that are happening deep.
Can I tell you something? He said that liquefaction is not so much an issue in the hills, but on the mountains, but it isn't.
Yeah, he did say
Yeah.
that. That's a good point. Thank you for pointing that out.
Ask Travis about liquefaction on his street.
Landslide.
Yeah, betcha.
right.
Moving
Okay, let's
houses
move on
off
to the
of
next
foundation.
person because we need to end this by 9. David Karwoski, what were the main takeaways from Mr. Karwoski?
Well, I have one number that I wrote down. He said they sold 25,000 transit passes last year.
25,000.
And I'm not sure if it was actually last year or last quarter.
They didn't sell them. They give them away. So because that's part of the student fees, so regardless if people use it or not, they don't have to pay for it. Just to clarify.
He said sold.
No, they were paid for they were subsidized by student fees. It was a vote.
But he did say sold, so maybe he made a mistake.
Okay, maybe made a mistake.
Okay, the major big things, the major takeaways was he was, justification of for why the stop out in the middle of the campus was, I want to say necessary.
Relevant.
I want to say
Relevant.
justified.
Desirable to some.
Desirable. Exactly. Thank you. Gave a.
They still have to walk over to the hospital, and that's quite a far walk.
Yeah.
So what good does that do?
Yeah.
Okay, stop. And
Wasn't the Luskin Center another place for a stop?
remember, all we're doing here is summarizing the testimony,
So
Yeah, no, I'm just
not
mentioning that
providing our
there was a
commentary.
question about the med center that would take care of the med center.
he said something that I found very unusual. He said, if you would like, and you'll paraphrase it better than I am when you look at when you run the recording through ChatGPT. He said, think of the quid pro quo that you're willing to offer Metro in order to support, essentially to support a route that you support.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't even think it was that. It was what we wanted. I don't think it was necessarily an exchange for support. It was what we wanted.
He did use the word quid pro
He
quo,
used
but
the word
Whoa.
quid pro quo that you're willing
I
to
knew what the gist was.
Oh.
The gist was
Yeah.
maybe don't come out of guns a-blazing and think about what you'd like to see improved.
Yeah, and he,
No, it didn't say it in that way, though, Jamie. I mean, it'll be interesting to see once you run this the voice recording through
I'm
chat.
just wondering what UCLA offered Metro
Exactly.
in a quid pro quo.
I think it's the other way around.
And
Oh.
we were told by the Getty rep that they specifically had joined forces with their clout in the community.
It's late.
to-
Let's focus on what
No, he denied it.
I want to focus. I mean,
clarify
I'm
that.
really tired right now, so let's focus
Well,
on summarizing
crowd.
the comments of the person who spoke. We've literally
This
got
was the
2
comment
bullets
of
right now.
the
But let's come on, let's go. Let's
yeah,
get through
that
them.
we request mitigation, our own mitigation factor.
Suggest that BCNC propose mitigation
And
in
he-
its letter.
Yeah, and he especially mentioned traffic on the Kenyon streets during construction.
What else did
And
he
he
say?
did, okay. He
What he
said
said
they were
was-
not, UCLA was not concerned about a Getty stop,
Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
which contradicts what the Getty said.
Well,
Pamela, I don't think
not concerned about Getty stop.
Yeah, what Getty said was that they were willing to band together with UCLA in order to get a stop at the Getty.
Uh-huh.
Because there's only one choice that has the Getty in it.
He said they were technology agnostic. But they just wanted to stop in the middle of campus.
But he also said that they were opposed to the shuttle.
Well, there
I think we
is a
can-
stop on the purple line at the VA on the west side of the 405.
But they want to stop essentially at Luskin.
I think we can
Well,
kind
but
of consolidate this point into
Yeah, they can
what he said was a 1-seat ride with a stop, a 1-seat ride from the Valley to UCLA.
That's right.
A
Exactly.
1-seat ride from the Valley to UCLA.
And he also said that the increased travel time, the options with the increased travel time, would impact ridership to UCLA.
Okay, increased travel time. He said will decrease ridership, right?
Which would have said that the money would come like in spurts and it would take 30.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
increased travel time. Options with an increased travel time would have decreased ridership.
Okay, hold on. Options with, say it one more time.
An increased travel time or with a greater travel time would have decreased ridership. Or significantly, I think.
And is that why they don't support? Okay, that's fine.
He also said they don't know where the funding's going to come from, but they'll just go with it and get it from the federal government.
Not concerned about where funding will come at this point. The federal government will probably pony up eventually.
Yeah, it's like,
Because he said they didn't have it for the purple line and they just started building it anyway.
and and the money would come a piece here and a piece there and a piece then, and it would take 30 years to build this thing.
He also,
He didn't say it was going to take 30 years.
Yes, he
also,
did.
No, well, it
He said-
depends on it just depends on the phases. He said if you're trying to go all the way to LAX, it's a whole nother thing. But he
He said LAX was 2050.
that's not what this project's about.
No, no,
Yeah,
I'm
so
just
they said
mentioning
6.5 years
Well,
of construction.
that is what the
Government
project.
will likely provide money. They just like they did for the purple line / D line. He also said some
But-
very interesting things about he said one thing that residential communities will benefit because traffic will be taken off of canyon streets.
That's baloney.
Remember, we're just putting down what he said. Will benefit by having traffic taken off canyon streets,
No.
resulting in
And
better air quality.
He did make it clear that it was only going to extend to the Gold Line, and that serves their Pico, the UCLA Pico campus, doesn't it?
What else did he say? Let's see here.
they have not done any
Um,
study
yeah.
with respect to.
UCLA has not done independent ridership studies or forecast.
Yeah, there's no
With
data.
respect to how many of their students, faculty, et cetera, would use.
Although he
Did
did get some really interesting statistics about like the number of people that attend UCLA and the volume and all of that stuff.
And also-
Provided statistics regarding the number of users, number of students and employees.
Yeah, he said 47,000 plus 48,000 plus 7,000 grads.
How many students did he say again?
Said 48,000 plus 7,000
40,000
grads.
staff members. That's right.
You can put in XXX and get it from your from ChatGPT.
48,
plus
47, and then
employees.
7,000.
He also didn't have an answer to the question about escape hatches.
Oh, we didn't talk
About what, Nikki?
No, we didn't.
About escape routes in the tunnel.
Yes,
Cabin.
yes, definitely. Nobody has had an answer about
No.
that. Bob asked how far it was below Mulholland. Nobody can tell us how to get out.
Methods.
Yeah, that was my basic question. We're stuck under Mulholland Drive. How many feet are we under and how do we get out?
Bob, I
Because
think-
my understanding is from the beginning of the 405 at Moraga to through the mountain, through Mulholland to the valley, I understand that's about 5 miles.
You're
So-
gonna have to, according to Bob Anderson, you would walk out.
Yeah,
Walk
He
out
also
5
said that
miles.
the lane under certain alternatives, the lanes of the 405 would be narrowed.
Oh, yes, that was big.
But Jenny, the lanes are gonna be narrowed, we're conflating two things around the 405. The lanes are gonna be narrowed.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that he said this.
Yeah,
you
it
know,
would be
whether or not we
narrowed
believe
during-
it or not. He said under certain alternatives,
Right.
the lanes of the 405 would be narrowed from 14 feet to 11 feet,
7
and
feet,
the
11.
shoulders would be eliminated.
Shoulders
He
would
said
be.
that would be a bad thing.
But
But
Maureen?
as I recall from the last project, the federal government had said that there couldn't go any smaller than 12, and so they were going to go 11 on the 405 project years ago.
We're
And they
not,
moved it back to 12. So I think his 14 is possibly an error.
again, we're just stating what the commenter said, not whether or not we believe it.
No, I'm just
But
pointing out that he said that he's looking for 11.
But Jamie, if you're going to use this as as the hallmark of the document that's going to be created, then at least in parens, we're going to have to put some correct information as we know it. Otherwise, we're going to
That
use
has to be validated, though. I'm just going to put Irene is skeptical of this.
Okay, because we just then cannot use much of this information as foundational.
Oh, skeptical of the 14 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, the
And
14
the
feet. Are you saying you don't believe it's 14 feet now?
No,
I
no.
believe that she doesn't believe that it's going to happen as that it's going to be narrowed as a result of the construction, but rather as a result of the HOV lanes.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
sometimes I have difficulty. Thank you for putting that in
Maureen brought that up.
specific statement. A skeptical that the narrowing is a byproduct of this project.
Right.
Rather, it is a result of HOV lane creation.
Also something, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Also something about the connection to LAX won't be until 2050, which I mean is important because when you're talking about transit system, you're talking about connectivity to different locations, and that's critical.
There's nothing we can do about that. I mean, he did say they're not going to redo all the engineering and everything and change that, and if you take out stops, it's not going to make the,
Yeah, that was interesting discussion. Not feasible to think Metro will elongate line if a stop is removed. And I know why.
isn't it
You guys should know why
feasible?
too, right? Do you know why? Because it's really every single mile is billions of dollars. So it's not like eliminating a stop somehow frees up lots of money to expand this thing. It's that
He
simple.
said it's
it's also,
$15
they also
billion.
have to redo all the studies and the draft EIR and everything.
I know, but we're just putting his comments in. We're not opining. So I mean, he meant that
feasible to think. I'm just I just broke my own rule. So
yeah.
So elongate
He
line.
did say
Stop is
the UCLA stop was $15 billion.
No, he didn't.
I didn't hear that.
Pardon?
I didn't hear him say that.
But he did.
I did because he was answering my question.
Yeah, he did say that they
Said the delta, whatever the delta is.
He did say that they anticipated that the UCLA stop would be the second busiest stop, and
That's true.
And the Wilshire at I forget. I think it was 18,000.
If it was on the purple line, if it was the purple line stop at Westwood.
No, and then the
Westwood and Wilshire.
And then the Wilshire stop would be the busiest at 30,000, but check my numbers.
Would be the second busiest stop if it was in operation today in the metro system.
I don't remember him saying if it was in operation today. I think that's what they were.
That was implicitly what he was saying. I mean, because he was measuring like today, like you're looking at today's number.
Yeah. And Wilshire would be the second busiest.
He's projecting
30,000 people a day. But check the numbers. I think he said 30,000.
Are we going to put in the part where we talked about LAX at 2050?
Yes, please do.
Extension to LAX not likely to occur until 2050.
Did you say something about 30,000 people at the Purple Line at Wilshire and Westwood?
Yeah, that's I believe that was what he said, that the Wilshire would be the busiest, not the second busiest stop, 30,000. Whoops, that's 30.
Wilshire would be the busiest stop?
Busiest, yeah.
That was the justification to put the spur into campus.
And
what did he say about the other one? Did he give numbers from the other one?
I believe it was 18,000 for the stop. But
yeah. So what he said the Getty has a very tiny projected readership, 1,300 a day compared to 18,000 a day using UCLA, or 30,000 at Purple Line at Wilshire and Westwood.
Yeah, and just FYI, Metro estimates at 1,200, 1,300.
And this
Okay, so is there any other big picture issues we want to put down?
Oh, wait a minute. Was that from that was Mr. San who said that?
Yeah, we might want to make some notes from the public commenters.
That was saying.
Let's move on to that real quick. So,
Yeah.
public comments received. We heard comments from Maureen Levinson and Stephen Sand.
Yeah, and Jamie, can you make sure you capture, I know you posted them in, but capture the questions from Jamie and in the Q&A.
They're down there.
That didn't get included, okay. And my apologies, we shouldn't actually be setting up the Q&A for these meetings because we don't use them that way. But
In lieu of a chat, you know.
yeah, we shouldn't, Brown Act wise, we shouldn't be doing that.
I
So,
wasn't sure why they were on.
yeah. But since they're there and we didn't get to them, let's make sure we get them into the.
Okay, so I think we only had 2 public commenters. Maureen
Yeah,
Levinson.
Maureen made really good observations about the New York subway system and some of the unanticipated problems.
The usage of the New York subway system by protesters.
Yes.
And questioned what procedures were in place to prevent a similar occurrence at UCLA. Questioned what procedures were in place, being planned,
and security
to ensure a similar occurrence does not occur at UCLA. So that's security measures.
UCLA wants this so badly. Why don't they put out the whole money for it and get it done?
Because it's a public institution.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get all the bond money that way.
All right. Anything else that Maureen said? We got to put what his response was. Mr.
Professor.
I don't know how to say his last name.
Mr. Polish last name.
Stated that UCLA was taking this issue seriously and would be addressing some of the issues in its comment letter.
Yeah, because they're getting charged $1 billion for it.
That's ridiculous, but yeah,
by the feds.
Anything else?
He did mention that there were, and I for the life of me, I can't remember all the things he listed, but that there were a lot of there was a lot of campus support for a stop.
Oh yeah, you're right. He did write that.
100 organizations, and they had 2
that was
demands that he was adamant that they had to have a stop at UCLA. There was no other way, and
yeah, all these organizations representing people in the flats that don't have the problem of their neighborhoods being turned upside down and eminent domain and noise and everything else. And they just want to have the tunnel. And regardless of what it does to other neighborhoods, to give them their tunnel.
And they're going to be students there for 4 years, maybe. So that's how much they'll use it.
And if he thinks that it's going to diminish Canyon traffic, it won't. It'll fill up.
No, that won't diminish Canyon traffic at all.
It was his point to make, but it was not a point that we agree with.
There were 2 imperatives. What was the other one?
Oh, I think.
Okay, this is just high level. Okay, now we're moving on to Stephen Sand. Mr. Sand said that he represented, he put on a different hat. What is it called?
That's the one.
Streets for All.
That's the one.
Yeah.
He said Streets for All. It was something else.
Represented
STC for all.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
SCC Coalition for All.
Yep.
And Westwood Community Council.
Yep.
Oh, he.
And Steve's here. You can ask him.
I don't remember.
Yep.
Said he was representing. I'm just going to put whatever that name was.
SPC, like Sepulveda Transit Corridor Coalition for All, which has more than 100 organizations.
Okay.
S T like Tom, ST like Tom.
But he's not a lobbyist.
And then he highlighted
People have
the priorities of the coalition.
There were two non-starters. They were adamant that
I can
they
tell
had
you.
to have them.
It has
And
to be-
one was the stop at UCLA campus.
He said they wanted a stop at UCLA, and what else?
No, that was
I can't.
And
Mr.
there must be a seamless,
One
and a
person at a
seamless
time. I can
connection-
only hear one person.
And a seamless connection with the purple D line that eliminates Alt 1.
But I believe that wasn't Mr. Sam. I believe that was Mr. Karwas.
No, it was Mr. Sam.
One seat. It was the one seat.
Mr.
want-
Sand did say that. He did.
And that eliminates Alt 1, skips UCLA campus, skips Westwood.
And by
Doesn't
the
matter.
way, there was another murder on the metro line the other day. I don't remember which one it was.
Mm.
Okay. I think that's enough.
That's it.
Before we finish up, I do have some housekeeping stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got to come back to the minutes.
Well, I have some other things.
Okay. So that'll have to be good. Oh, is it on this? Is it under this agenda item 4?
No, because we should do public comment at this item since we agendized it.
Okay. It's already 9:14. Let's open this up for public comment. Anyone in the public comment, including Mr. Sand, if I got anything wrong, let me know. They would like to speak. We're trying to take down the notes as quickly as we possibly can. Go ahead, Mr. Sand.
Mr. Hall, thank you so much. In the interest of time, it's late. Everyone needs to get home, get to sleep. I just would suggest if you're going to run it through Chat GPT, some of the notes at the very end that you attributed to Mr. Karwoski actually were my comments, but you'll pick all that up when you go through Chat GPT, and I have confidence you'll get it correct. So just wanted to point that out.
Okay, great. Perfect. And then, so we'll end public comment. I don't see anyone else wanting to speak on this. Ms. Templeton.
I had said the last time I would try to contact BYD and Bechtel, and Irene sent me the name for somebody at BYD, but the email address, but it bounced back as non-existent. So does anybody know anybody at Metro that might be able to get us actual contact people to?
I'm sorry, what happened with the BYD? Because I got it off his business card.
Yeah, I don't know if he's no longer there or what, but it bounced back as a non-existent address.
I didn't give you, okay, I know there is a real address in Pasadena.
Yeah, no, the email address bounced back.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. It's possible. I don't have any explanation. But
I'm not blaming you. Maybe he's left Metro. So
Irene, tell us what happened.
So
We demand an explanation, Irene.
And so I'm just wondering if anybody has any contacts at Metro that might have the contacts that we can reach out to at BYD or Bechtel. If not, I could just try their main number, their email address.
I wonder if, because both of them spoke, I believe, at Skirball, maybe Skirball has their numbers.
Right. It's a just and then a couple other things. So I found a video on that was, there was a link to it in Reddit and the transportation thing in the transportation subreddit that looks like it could be a really good video. Jamie, can I send it to you? There were, I think, a couple of them, or like 2 of them, that went through the
Can you send it to Kathy and she'll make sure that it gets sent to all the committee members?
Yeah.
Or if you send it
if
to me
you
right
wanted-
now, I can put it in the notes as well.
Yeah, if you wanted to see it first, before you send it out, I don't, before we send it out, I don't know. I just looked at snippets. It looked like it was very comprehensive and showed where the lines exactly would be and where the stations would be and what they would be like and all that sort of
You
stuff.
can feel free to send it to Kathy. It's fine.
And then I tried to download the draft EIR and it said it wouldn't download. It wasn't a downloadable file or it wasn't an openable. I forget what it was. It didn't work. Does anybody have a PDF of it or know where I can get one?
I think you can get one from Bob Anderson.
Right.
Oh, yeah, right.
You might kind of try that again. I find it hard to believe that.
I find it hard to believe too, but I keep getting error messages. I was clicking on the download
Did
button.
you try a different browser maybe?
I did not, it downloaded, but then when, and as a zip file, but then when I went to click the zip file, it gave me an error message. And I tried.
Okay, guys,
I'd
if
like
I
to
could,
ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
real quick, and I'll put it in the queue. No, I can't even put it in the Q&A. There is a version where you can look at it through a browser and not just download the PDFs. If you want all the appendices, you got to go download the whole thing. It's from a Google Drive site and it does work. It's just tedious.
Yeah, it didn't, I would have had to
Yep.
download each thing separately.
Exactly.
Instead of
Yeah.
zip
Yeah.
file. Yeah, it didn't work.
Yep.
Yeah, because I was hoping to put it in a PDF and search for things. And then I don't know, I've tried looking the other way, looking for like the traffic implications of construction and that sort of thing and didn't find anything. If anybody knows if it's in there, let me know.
I'm sorry. My question to you is, were you talking about what you tried to copy from the link that was on the agenda, or did you go to the Metro site and look for the link there?
Yeah, I tried various, I tried the one on the agenda and various ones on through Metro and was not able to download a PDF other than sort of section by section, which it would be extremely tedious.
Yeah, that's the way it works though. And maybe it's intentionally tedious.
Okay, any other issues?
Jamie, can you just add Jonathan Brand to the list of people with access to the just to look at the list?
Yeah, Jamie, you said you were gonna send the whole committee the collection for the PLU committee.
Huh? Kathy, say it one more time.
Oh, no, this is about the PLU committee. I forgot. And we were gonna send them a package, a link that you received. It was just reminding me, I'm sorry. It's not about this. It's about Stanley. Forget it.
Okay, yeah, forget that. So I'm sharing this with you, Jonathan. You are a viewer. And it's to your BABCNC address. And I'll remind everybody, let's always, to the extent that we can, use our neighborhood council email addresses. You will thank me when the time and a need arises for it. So if you're looking for where that was shared with you, it was shared to your neighborhood council email address. If you click on it and it still doesn't work, sometimes Gmail does this weird thing and it wants you to share it with your Gmail address. We can still accommodate that. So let's see here. Do we have anything else? I think we've got our notes down for today. And then we're going to go this last thing. I guess there's going to be a motion to reconsider the approval of the minutes to add some clarifying language for Mr.
So two parts. Having voted in the affirmative on the motion to approve the minutes, I move now to reconsider the approval of the minutes, which requires a 2/3 vote.
Second.
Second, all right.
All in favor, please raise your hand.
I'm sorry, that one happened. Who moved in? Who said?
Longcore move, Templeton second. Motion to reconsider. 2/3 vote required, was achieved unanimously.
Okay.
Now you can move to amend the minutes.
Go ahead, Ms. Templeton.
I no longer recall what he said, but they were
Okay.
Reasonable.
Yeah, I move to amend the minutes per the request that came. It was from Mr. Brand, right?
Mr. Sand.
It's just.
Oh, Mr. Sand. Okay.
Brand.
I second it.
No, it was Mr. Brand.
No, Kathy, you're confused. We already dealt with the issue of the amendments of Mr. Brand. Then Mr. Sand, during the public comment period, said that he wanted the statements regarding his comment slightly changed because he just did.
Yes,
Oh.
that was
Yeah.
that was Mr. Steve Sand. And
Yes.
I second the motion.
Okay.
All right. And Steve, did Steve put that in writing somewhere, or?
He's not here anymore.
Oh,
he
okay.
is here, and he has raised his hand. Can we
Yeah.
unmute him?
No, Mr. Dr. Loncor, I didn't put it in writing. If you like, I can do that. I was just simply saying when you run it through ChatGPT, you'll hear my comments, and they're pretty straightforward. It was just to clarify, to make sure that they were
Yeah,
accurate.
that's for tonight, but for last time, you had some questions about the draft minutes.
Right. There were a couple of comments. One, I know it said something purple, and I was just trying to clarify. It referenced the purple D line. There were a couple of little clarifications. There was some like shorthand that if somebody read the minutes, they wouldn't really necessarily know what I said. So if you run GPT of what I said tonight, it clarifies what I would like to be corrected in the minutes.
Okay, from last time. So I would move that we actually authorize the chairs of the committee to make minor adjustments to the minute for factual corrections of Mr. Sand's statements from the last meeting.
Well,
I
second.
Second,
Okay.
third,
And as a co-chair of this committee, I request Ms. Palmer
Yes, we know how that works.
to listen to the recording
Yeah.
and to revise the
Yeah.
minutes as such.
Yeah, we'll sort it out. So, but I think we've covered that
Okay.
procedurally now.
Any last good of the order issues?
I think Otter AI, I think for like once a week would be free, and it does a good job also of doing minutes.
If I went into the Travis, you can help me here. I got the Zoom username and password for our Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council Zoom. I went to the AI companion tool to make sure that the correct button was clicked so that it would do the summarization. It does a great job. And it said feature was locked by admin. Who is the admin of our Zoom account? All we have to do is go to the settings, and
that account is the admin account. So
it was
that means
grayed out.
that means we don't have the feature.
I don't
And
know.
we have a version of this that is arranged by the city that then we pay for. So this is a city question, I believe. We can take it to our new Dunn representative.
Yeah, Eric.
Well, then maybe we can have somebody join
Yeah.
using one of those AI tools, and it'll
Yeah.
do it itself.
Yeah.
So we'll come up with a workaround.
Let me just go to the order of this really quickly, which is thank you everybody for all the time, both the people who have attended, the people who are giving public comments, our experts who showed up from UCLA taking the time, Bel Air Association last week. This is 3 hours on a work night of caring about your community. And I want to encourage and remind everybody to be respectful about the fact that you don't know other people's situations. And just because you think somebody has time, that doesn't make them a lobbyist. And so we're all doing the very same thing here. So just keep it and give everybody else the same benefit of the doubt that they're advocating for their communities, just like we're all trying to articulate the best things for our communities. This is the way it works. And I think we've got a lot of other issues in the world that we can all worry about, or at least we can try to get along and respect everybody's time and participation as we go through. And again, apologies. I know we didn't get to some questions as we went along. I was on the back end of this trying to deal with the timing of various invites and allowing people who committed a certain amount of time and give even more of that to get on in the evening. So we're all doing the absolute best we can and appreciate that.
Thank you, Travis, for getting those people. They were very informative and helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Travis. And amen to that.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Night all.
Bye-bye.